Tonight, we ask the most uncomfortable question the wizarding world offers. What if Draco Malfoy ended up fighting alongside Harry, Ron, and Hermione? Not through a change of heart, not through a speech about right and wrong, through one deflected curse on a June night, a decision made in the time it takes lightning to cross a sky, and then the months of consequences that followed, which were worse than anything Draco had planned for, and better than nothing at all. The Tower Dumbledore was already dead before Draco fully processed that Snape had done it. The body went over the parapet. Snape grabbed Draco by the arm and pulled him toward the stairs, and the Death Eaters were already moving, already flooding down through the school. And Draco ran, because running was the only thing left that made sense. They burst out onto the grounds. The night was full of green light and shouting. Ahead of them somewhere, Harry was screaming Snape's name. Bellatrix laughed. She turned back toward the darkness where Harry's voice was coming from, and she raised her wand. The curse came from the darkness, not at Bellatrix. At Draco. A stunner, he thought, or something worse, coming fast and low. He threw up a shield charm. He'd been practicing shield charms obsessively for 8 months, ever since he understood that the mission was going to kill him one way or another. His shield charm was very good. It worked exactly as intended. The curse deflected off it and hit Amicus Carrow in the chest. Carrow went down with a sound like a sack of wet gravel. He didn't get up. Bellatrix stopped laughing. "What," she said, "did you just do?" All 4 remaining Death Eaters were looking at Draco. Snape's face was unreadable. The grounds were wide and empty in every direction except the one Draco had chosen to deflect into, and everyone present understood the geometry of what had just happened. "The curse came at me and Draco started. "The grounds are empty, Draco." Bellatrix walked toward him. Her voice was almost gentle, which was the thing about Bellatrix that his mother had explained to him years ago. The gentler she got, the worse things were going to be. Empty in every direction, except the direction you chose. Harry burst out of the darkness and stopped. Draco could see him taking in the scene. Carrow on the ground, 4 Death Eaters, Bellatrix advancing on Draco with her wand out. Draco looked at his aunt. He looked at Harry. "Run," Harry said. "Not to the Death Eaters. To Draco. Run. Now, he goes nowhere," Bellatrix started. Harry threw a spell. Not at Bellatrix, at the ground between her and Draco. An explosion of soil and sparks that made 3 of the 4 Death Eaters dive sideways. Snape grabbed for Draco. Draco wrenched free. He ran. The grounds opened up ahead of him, dark and wide, and he ran across them with the sounds of the battle behind him and his school robes tangling at his legs and the cold June air burning in his chest. He got through the gates. He kept running. Draco sat in the alley behind the 3 broomsticks at 2 a.m. and tried to think clearly. He had no money. He had his wand and his school robes and the clothes underneath them. His mother was at Malfoy Manor. His father was in Azkaban. The Death Eaters wanted him for what he'd done to Carrow. The Order of the Phoenix had every reason to assume he was still an enemy. The Ministry was either about to fall to Voldemort or had already fallen. He had been at the top of the Hogwarts social hierarchy 12 hours ago, and his current position was a wet alley in Hogsmeade at 2 a.m. He was a quick thinker. He'd always been a quick thinker. He thought about every option, and every option ended badly, and he sat with the wet cobblestones soaking through his robes and thought about how quickly things could collapse when the structure they rested on turned out not to exist. At 3 a.m, he stood up and walked to the Hog's Head. Aberforth Dumbledore looked at him across the bar with the expression of a man who had seen more than enough of this particular war and who had no intention of pretending otherwise. "I need to contact someone," Draco said. "Do you?" Aberforth said. "Hermione Granger," Draco said. "Or Harry Potter. Or Weasley. One of them. And why would I help you do that?" Because I have information about Voldemort's operation that your brother died without knowing, Draco said. And because Bellatrix Lestrange is now my enemy as well as yours, which means I have interests aligned with people who are trying to stop her. Aligned interests, Aberforth said. Yes, my brother died 3 hours ago, Aberforth said. Draco said nothing. Aberforth looked at him for a long time. He was a large man who looked nothing like his brother and who had, Draco suspected, spent most of his life being compared to Albus Dumbledore and arriving unfavourably in the comparison. His eyes were the same colour, though. Draco noticed that. Same pale blue. You'll tell me what you know first, Aberforth said, before I contact anyone. Half of it, Draco said, as a demonstration of good faith. The rest when I'm in a room with Potter and the others. Half, Aberforth refilled his own glass, didn't offer one to Draco. Right, Talk the Note came back at dawn, Aberforth's. 1 hour. All 3 of us. So she'd gone to them first. Draco had expected that. He'd have preferred a few minutes to frame things before Ron Weasley showed up with a wand, but the note didn't offer alternatives. He was in the back room of the Hog's Head when they arrived. The room smelled of old wood, and something Draco refused to identify. Harry came through the door with his wand out, which was expected. Hermione behind him, also wand out. Ron last, also wand out, wearing the expression of someone who had been wanting this precise moment since first year. I'm not going to fight you, Draco said. I have nothing to gain from it. That's never stopped you before, Ron said. Ron, Hermione said. It hasn't. We know. Sit down. Ron sat. He kept his wand on the table. Harry hadn't moved from the doorway. He was doing the thing Draco had observed about him over 6 years of watching from across the Great Hall, taking in a situation before committing to anything. Draco had always found it frustrating in Harry because it was a quality he associated with his own side, with Slytherins, with people who calculated. He'd never expected it from Potter. You deflected a curse into Carrow, Harry said. The curse was aimed at me, Draco said. And every other direction on those grounds was empty. Draco said nothing. Yeah, Harry said. He pulled out a chair and sat down across from Draco. What do you know? He made 6 of them, Draco said. The objects. And the snake is a 7th protection. Hermione inhaled sharply. My father told Yaxley, Draco said. 2 years ago. I was behind a curtain in the dining room. It doesn't matter why. 6 objects. The snake is the last living protection. That matches, Hermione said quietly to Harry. You know about 6, Harry said. The locket from the cave is a fake, Draco said. Someone got there before Voldemort. R.A.B. Regulus Arcturus Black. My mother's cousin. He defected in 1979 and was killed for it. He left a note inside the fake saying he'd taken the real one and was going to destroy it. How do you know his initials? Ron said. Because I saw them on a letter when I was 11 and asked my father who R.A.B. was, and my father told me he was a traitor and never to ask again, Draco said. The Blacks are my mother's family. I know the family tree. Regulus would have hidden the real locket somewhere safe, Hermione said. She was already thinking. Somewhere he trusted, creature, Harry said. Draco watched Harry's face go through 3 things at once. He'd learned to read Harry's face over 6 years of competition. Something had connected. The house elf, Harry said. He was devoted to Regulus. If Regulus gave him the locket, Grimmauld Place, Hermione said. You've been there, Draco said. It was our base, Harry said. Was, Draco said. Past tense. When did you leave? Harry looked at him. Why does that matter? Because if Creature's been given instructions by multiple people since Regulus died, and Snape has now been to Grimmauld Place, Draco stopped. Watched Harry's jaw tighten. The location is compromised. If the locket is still there, going back for it puts you at risk. Ron turned to Harry. He's right. We don't know Snape's been. Snape's been everywhere we've been, Ron said. He knew about the cave. He knew where Dumbledore was going. He's known everything all year. Harry was quiet for a moment. We can still go to Creature. If we're fast means within the next 24 hours, Draco said. After that, assume the location is burned. Harry looked at him. You're giving me a deadline. I'm telling you what I know, Draco said. What you do with it is your problem. Ron's wand hand twitched. Hermione put her hand on his arm. What else? Harry said. Draco told them. Not everything. He kept some things back, because giving everything at once was not how negotiations worked, and because he needed leverage to stay in this room tomorrow. But enough. The structure of Voldemort's inner circle. The Death Eater's plan for the Ministry. The Carrows at Hogwarts come September. The general direction of the hunt for the remaining objects. By the end, Ron's wand was still on the table, but he was leaning forward. The Ministry plan, Hermione said. They're going to take it from inside. Thickness is already under the Imperius, Draco said. It's done. The takeover is a formality. Dumbledore was going to tell us. Harry started. Well, Ron said. And stopped. Nobody finished that. Right, Harry said, after a moment. You're coming with us, Harry? Ron started. He's coming with us, Harry said. Because the information is real, and he's been burned by both sides, and keeping him close is better than sending him out there where he either gets caught and talks, or gets recruited back. He could already be if he were working for Voldemort, he'd have kept the information to himself and let us walk into whatever trap was set, Hermione said. That's what an actual spy does, not this. Ron stared at her. You're defending him. I'm applying logic, she said. I'm not defending him. There is a distinction, Draco said. Shut up, Ron told him. If I'm going to be in this group, you're not in this group, Ron said. You're a source. There's a difference. Draco looked at Ron. Ron looked back. Fine, Draco said. What do sources sleep in? A silence. We have a tent, Hermione said. Of course you do, Draco said. Week 1, the tent had been packed by Hermione in May, which told Draco everything he needed to know about Hermione Granger. She'd been planning for the eventuality of living in a tent before the school year had ended. She'd brought enough notebooks to document a small war, which she appeared to be doing. The tent was cramped. There were 3 cots, because of course there were 3 cots, and Draco was given the cot nearest the entrance, because Ron had stood in front of the other 2 with the energy of someone who has thought about this and made a decision. The entrance is the most exposed position, Draco said. Yes, Ron said. Draco took the cot nearest the entrance. Harry spent the first 3 days going over everything Draco had told him, cross-referencing it against what he knew from Dumbledore's lessons. The 2 of them sat at the table for hours on the second day, and Draco was aware this was the closest he had ever been to Harry Potter for a sustained period of time, which was peculiar in a way he was not ready to examine. Hermione kept notes. She was always keeping notes. When she wasn't keeping notes, she was reading, and when she wasn't reading, she was cross-referencing notes against books, and at night Draco could hear her quill on parchment after the lamp had gone down, and he understood that she didn't actually sleep so much as take breaks from working. On the 4th day, Draco made a comment about Granger's research methodology that he'd meant as an observation and that came out with the wrong edge on it. The old edge, the one he'd spent 6 years honing, and Hermione's face went flat in a way that was worse than anger. Say it again, she said. I didn't mean... Say what you said again. I didn't mean it the way it sounded, Draco said. I don't care how you meant it, Hermione said. I care what you said. So say it again and listen to yourself. Draco said nothing. Ron stood up from his cot with the deliberate movement of someone who has been waiting for an excuse. He leaves, Ron said. He says one more thing like that, and he leaves. Ron? Harry started. No, Ron said. That's the condition. That's the one condition. He can be here. Fine. Harry's right that it makes sense to have him here. But he says one more thing like that to her, and he goes. I don't care what information he has. Harry looked at Draco. It was not an expression of support. It was the expression of someone who has decided not to contradict a reasonable position. Understood, Draco said. Good, Ron said. He sat back down. He picked up the chess set he'd been arranging and started putting pieces back in their box. Draco looked at his hands on the table. He had meant the comment as an observation. He had also been aware, in the half-second before he made it, that it had the wrong edge, and he had made it anyway. Because 6 years of Hogwarts had grooved certain channels in him very deep, and the channels didn't care that the war had started. He was going to have to work on the channels. He didn't apologise. He hadn't learned to do that yet. But he didn't make another comment like it. And the day moved forward, and Hermione went back to her notes without acknowledging that anything had happened. Kreacher and the locket they went to Grimmauld Place in the middle of the second week. Harry, Ron and Hermione went. Draco stayed in the tent, because Draco going to Grimmauld Place, which was a Black family property, would either terrify Kreacher or send him running, and neither outcome was useful. Tell me the layout, Draco said before they left. I've never been inside, but I know the address. What rooms are where? Why do you need the layout if you're not going? Ron said. Because if something goes wrong, I need to know the geography to be useful when you describe it, Draco said. He has a point, Harry said. Hermione told him the layout. Draco memorized it. They left. He sat in the tent alone for 4 hours. He had not been alone since the Hog's Head, and before that he'd been at Hogwarts for 9 months, surrounded by people. So the silence of the tent with no one in it was genuinely strange. He could hear birds outside and wind, and once, at the edge of the tent's protective charms, what sounded like a car on a road somewhere. He thought about his mother at the manor. He thought about the fact that she was going to hear about the tower, probably already had, and that she was going to hear the story from Bellatrix, who was going to present it in the most damaging way available. His mother was smart enough to understand what had actually happened. Whether Voldemort would care about the difference was another question. They came back at sundown. Ron had a bruise across his cheekbone. Harry had the look he got when things had nearly gone wrong and he'd got through it anyway, which was a look Draco was starting to identify with some accuracy. We have it, Hermione said. She was carrying a bag. Inside the bag, Draco could feel something wrong, a heaviness in the air around it, a pressure, like standing next to a fire that was pretending to be cold. Mundungus had sold it, Harry said. Kreacher tracked him down. Umbridge has been wearing it. You took it from Umbridge? Draco said. Kreacher took it from Mundungus, Harry said. Mundungus hadn't given it to Umbridge yet. We just got there before he could. How? Draco said. We followed Kreacher, Ron said. Kreacher followed Mundungus. Mundungus tried to run. Kreacher headbutted his ankles. The house elf headbutted him, Draco said. Very committed, Ron said. There was something in his voice that was almost fond about it. Keep it in the bag, Draco said. Don't wear it. It? He stopped. My father's library had information about objects like that. The soul inside them responds to what the person wearing it is most vulnerable to. Amplifies it. We need to be able to open it, Hermione said. The sword of Gryffindor, Harry said. Dumbledore said the sword. Basilisk venom in the blade. Where's the sword? Draco said. Harry's face did something complicated. Dumbledore left it to me in his will. The Ministry won't release it. They're claiming it's not Dumbledore's to bequeath, Hermione said. Because the Ministry is already under Death Eater influence, Draco said. Who controls the artifact releases? Umbridge, Harry said. Of course she does, Draco said. He thought. The sword will be in her personal secure office, not the official one. How do you know she has a personal secure office? Ron said. Because my father used one for years, Draco said. Same floor, same building. It's how the ministry works. The official rooms are for official records. The personal ones are for everything else. So we need to go into the ministry, Hermione said. We need to go into the ministry, Harry said. Yes, the ministry that's now Death Eater controlled, Ron said. Also yes, Harry said. A silence that Draco did not fill, because it wasn't his silence to fill. The locket first, Hermione said. We need to destroy it before anyone wears it. Then the sword. We can't destroy the locket without the sword, Harry said. I know, she said, but we can keep it sealed. And while it's sealed, figure out the ministry. Polyjuice, Ron said. What? Draco said. Polyjuice potion, Ron said. We've done it before. Impersonate ministry officials. When you were 12, Draco said. And now we're 17 and the ministry is run by people who want to kill us, Hermione said. It's more complicated this time. Good, Ron said, with the complete absence of irony that Draco was starting to recognise as a Weasley trait. 3 weeks in the thing about living in a tent with 3 people who already had a dynamic was that the dynamic had no room for a fourth. It was like adding a wrong note to a chord. The music kept going, but something vibrated underneath it that hadn't been there before. Harry and Ron had been friends long enough that they communicated in half sentences. Hermione and Harry had been in close enough proximity for long enough that she could read his silence in at least 4 distinct categories. Ron and Hermione argued about things that had nothing to do with what they were actually arguing about, which Draco found exhausting to witness, and which Harry had clearly learned to navigate. Draco existed in relation to all 3 of them, which was not the same as existing within the dynamic. He was useful. He was consistently useful, which was more than he'd expected from himself and probably more than they'd expected from him. His knowledge of Death Eater methodology meant that when plans came up, he could identify which pieces were risky and why. His father's library, which he'd spent 11 years treating as furniture, turned out to contain the most practically applicable information about dark objects that any of them had ever encountered. When Hermione's research hit a wall, Draco could often push through it from memory. He was also, he noticed, getting things wrong in ways he hadn't expected. The wrong things were not the things he'd expected to get wrong. He didn't miss the comforts of the manor, or not much. He didn't struggle with being useful rather than superior, or not as much as he would have predicted. The wrong things were smaller and more humiliating. He said things at the wrong moment. He had a comment about everything. His father had valued commentary, had treated silence as weakness, and Draco had been talking since he could put words together. And in this tent with these 3 people who were already managing too much, commentary at the wrong moment landed wrong. He'd learned to identify the landing about a half-second too late. Slow enough that the damage was done, fast enough that he could see exactly what he'd done. He couldn't fix it when it happened. Apologising didn't feel available. He'd never learned apologising as a tool. What he could do was not do it again, and he was, very slowly, doing it less. Ron noticed this. Ron noticed most things, which continued to be a problem. You stopped doing the thing, Ron said, one evening. What thing? Draco said. The thing where you say something that sounds like a comment but is actually you telling someone they're wrong, Ron said. You stopped doing it as much. I don't know what you're talking about, Draco said. Ron looked at him with the expression of someone who absolutely knew Draco knew what he was talking about, but who had decided not to push it. Right, Ron said. The ministry plan, Draco said, which was not a subtle subject change. What about it? The Polyjuice approach needs 3 people inside, and whoever's outside as backup, Draco said. The problem is which 3? You're going to say it should be you, Ron said. I'm going to say it shouldn't be me, Draco said. I'm on a Death Eater wanted list and a ministry wanted list simultaneously. My face in the ministry is the worst possible outcome. So you direct from outside. So I direct from outside, Draco said. Which means I need to know everything you know about the layout before you go in. Harry has the Marauder's map, Ron said. It covers the Ministry. The map covers Hogwarts, Draco said, not the Ministry. Unless, Ron said. He looked at Draco. No, you're right. Just Hogwarts. He picked up a pawn from the chess set. We need better information on the layout. I can give you the layout, Draco said. My father was in the Ministry constantly. I've been in that building at least a dozen times. You've been in the Ministry, Ron said. Many times, Draco said. Do you want the layout or not? Yeah, Ron said after a moment. Yeah, I do. The Ministry they went in 4 days later. Harry and Ron and Hermione under Polyjuice as 3 junior Ministry officials whose identities Draco had selected from the photographs in the Prophet's archive. 2 witches and a wizard, he'd picked them for lowest profile. No visible connections to Death Eater families, the kind of people who did their jobs without attracting attention. Draco was outside, 2 streets away, under a disillusionment charm, with the Protean charm communication system linked to the coin in Hermione's pocket. He had given them everything he could give them. The layout of the 2nd floor. The position of Umbridge's personal office relative to the maintenance corridors. The ward sequence on the private entrance, which he knew because his father had used the same architect for his own wards. He couldn't go with them. He stood in the London street, with the disillusionment charm making him feel like cold water was being poured over him, and he watched the Ministry entrance across the road, and he couldn't do anything except wait. The communication coin pulsed. 3rd floor wrong turn, go right. He pulsed back, take the maintenance stairs. Left turn, then right, then left again. A minute. Then found the office. 30 seconds, wards. Different from what you said. He sent, try counter I gave you 3rd sequence. 40 seconds that felt considerably longer. Then, in, sword here. Then nothing for 6 minutes. 6 minutes where he stood in the street and kept his eyes on the Ministry entrance and tried to identify if any of the people going in or out were being moved suspiciously. Nothing. Normal. Too normal. Then the coin burned hot. He sent. What happened? Back. Ron hit. Hermione almost taken. We have sword. Getting out now. Need exit distraction. He thought for 3 seconds. Then he cast a sonorous charm on himself and summoned something from the gutter. A can. A bit of Muggle debris. And enlarged it and sent it clattering and banging down the street outside the Ministry entrance, which made 6 people turn away from the door and toward the commotion, and which gave Harry and Ron and Hermione 20 seconds to come out of the entrance in their borrowed bodies and walk, not run, in the opposite direction. He found them 2 blocks over. Ron had a hand pressed against his left shoulder and his jaw set in the way of someone in real pain who is managing it. Hermione had the bag with the locket in it, and her hair was in more disarray than usual, and she was furious in the manner of someone who has been doing controlled breathing and not quite succeeding. Harry had the sword. What happened to Ron? Draco said. Confringo, Harry said. Reflected off something. Shoulder, Ron said through his teeth. Shoulder's fine. It's not fine, Hermione said. We need to get back to the tent and fix it. It's manageable, Ron said. Ron, Hermione, I said he made a sound. Fine, manageable, same thing. We need to move, Draco said. They know someone was there. The ward on the maintenance entrance will have logged a breach. We have 20 minutes before they trace the exit signature. Can you fix his shoulder? Harry said. To Draco. Draco looked at Ron. Ron looked at Draco with the expression of someone who would very much prefer not to be healed by Draco Malfoy, and who was aware that the situation did not leave him many options. I can stabilize it, Draco said. I'm not as good as Granger, I can do it, Hermione said. While we're walking, Draco said. Can you do it while we're walking? She could not, which she acknowledged with a look, and so Draco spent 45 seconds performing the stabilization charm on Ron's shoulder, while Ron stared at a point over Draco's head, and Harry kept watch behind them. And then they walked. Not ran. Never ran. Running attracted attention, back toward the apparition point. They got back to the tent. Ron sat down and let Hermione finish the shoulder properly. Harry put the sword on the table. The sword of Gryffindor lay there, catching the lamplight and looking like exactly what it was, the one thing that could fix the other thing currently sitting in the bag next to it. "We did it," Harry said. "We did it," Ron agreed through a wince as Hermione's wand moved. "The locket is still in the bag," Draco said. "We got the sword," Harry said. "Which is how you destroy the thing in the bag," Draco said. "Good, do it tonight, before it's been in the tent much longer." "Why tonight?" Harry said. "Because it's already affecting you," Draco said. The three of them looked at him. He looked back. "How long has Hermione been keeping her notes closer than usual?" Draco said. "How many times has Ron counted supplies in the last 2 days? How many hours were you not sleeping before the ministry, and how many were about the mission versus how many were about other things?" A silence. "You didn't feel it happening," Draco said. "That's how it works. He's right," Hermione said quietly. She put down her wand. I've been feeling it. I thought it was just stress." "It's not," Draco said. "Destroy it tonight. The locket destroyed, and what it cost they should have done it all together." What happened was, Harry opened it, and Ron drove the sword through it, and what came out was designed for Ron specifically. It found what Ron was most afraid of and put it in front of him, large as life, which was Harry and Hermione, and the suggestion that they thought less of Ron than Ron thought they thought less of him. Draco was watching from the corner. He'd been asked to stay back. He watched Ron's face go through terror and fury and doubt in the space of about 10 seconds, watched him stagger, watched the sword waver. "Ron," Harry said, "it's lying. It finds the worst thing and it shows it to you. None of it is real. It feels real," Ron said. "It's supposed to," Draco said from the corner. Ron looked at him, wild-eyed. "What do you know? I grew up surrounded by dark objects," Draco said. "They don't create fears. They find them, and they make them loud. Whatever you're seeing isn't something it invented. It's something that was already in you, and it's using it." He looked at Ron steadily. "Which means you already knew it wasn't true, and you pushed it down. Push it down again." Ron looked at the sword, at the open locket, at whatever was pouring out of it that Draco could feel but not see. He drove the sword through it. The sound was wrong in the way that all of this was wrong. A crack and a scream and something dark dissolving, and then the terrible quiet of after. Ron sat on the ground. He didn't fall. He sat deliberately, as though his legs had decided they were done for the moment. Harry was next to him immediately. Hermione was next to him a half-second later. Draco stood at the edge of the scene and looked at what destroying part of someone's soul looked like from the outside. It looked exactly as bad as he'd expected. Possibly worse. Because the thing in the locket had used Ron's fear of not being enough, which was, Draco had spent 6 years watching Ron from across the Great Hall and from across the Quidditch pitch and from across every room where Harry Potter was the centre of something and Ron Weasley was next to him. He knew what that fear was. He'd been on the other side of it for long enough. "Good?" Draco said. Ron looked up at him. "You did it," Draco said. "It's done." "Felt awful," Ron said. "Yes," Draco said. "I imagine it did." 4 more, Harry said. 3, Draco said. 3 more. The cup, the diadem, the snake. He caught Harry's eye. "And the other thing." Harry looked away. "What other thing?" Ron said. Nobody answered. Ron looked at Hermione. Hermione was looking at Harry. Harry was looking at the middle distance. "Harry," Ron said. "What other thing?" "Later," Harry said. "Not tonight." What Harry finally said he told them a week later. Not because he wanted to, because Ron kept asking and Hermione kept not asking in a way that was louder than asking, and eventually one evening Harry sat down at the table and said, "There's a seventh, besides the snake." "I know," Draco said. Everyone looked at him. "I worked it out," Draco said. 3 weeks ago, the way you reacted when I said 6 objects. You knew there was a seventh and you weren't ready to say it." He looked at Harry. "It's you." "Draco," Hermione started. "It's you," Draco said again. "The scar is a Horcrux. He made it accidentally when the curse rebounded off you as a baby. A piece of his soul went into you." Ron's face had gone the colour of old parchment. "Dumbledore worked it out," Harry said, "in 6th year, and his plan was," Draco started. "I have to die," Harry said. "The piece of his soul in me has to be destroyed. Voldemort has to kill me." And then he stopped. "The sacrificial protection," Draco said. "Your mother's magic. If Voldemort kills you himself, the curse hits what's in you, not you, and bounces again." "Theoretically," Hermione said. "That's Dumbledore's theory," Draco said. "Yes," Harry said. "He's dead," Ron said. "He's dead and he didn't get to tell you whether it definitely—" "I know," Harry said. "It's a theory," Ron said. "You're going to walk up to Voldemort and let him kill you based on a theory. I've checked the theory," Hermione said. Her voice was very controlled. The magical mathematics of it work. The precedent of the original sacrifice killed her, Ron said. "Lily died. That's the precedent." "She chose to die," Hermione said. "The choosing is what activates the protection. Harry choosing to—" "We're not having this conversation yet," Harry said. "It's not." He stopped. "It's not time yet. We need the other 3 first. We destroy everything else, and then I walk in." After a silence, Ron was staring at Harry with the expression of someone who has just been given news too large to process in a sitting. "I've known for months," Harry said. "I'm all right." "You're not all right," Ron said. Harry, you've known for months and you didn't," I told Hermione. Harry said. He stopped. "I needed time before I could say it out loud to everyone." Ron absorbed this. Draco looked at the table. He'd known for 3 weeks. He'd been carrying it for 3 weeks alongside Harry without ever directly saying he knew, and Harry had been carrying it alone before that, or almost alone, and none of this was simple. "The cup is at Gringotts," Draco said. "The Lestrange vault." "How do you know that?" Harry said. "Because my mother told me. Before all this," Draco said. "She didn't know what it was. She knew Bellatrix kept something at Gringotts that was more important than all the gold in the vault combined, and that it wasn't registered in the vault inventory, and that Bellatrix had specifically warded against it being seen or touched. My mother paid attention to Bellatrix very carefully because knowing what Bellatrix cared about was the only reliable warning system available. She was watching out for your family," Hermione said. "She was watching out for all of us," Draco said. "That was her whole occupation. Watching out for us in a situation where watching out was the only available protection." Nobody said anything else about that. "Gringotts," Harry said. "Right, and the diadem?" "Hogwarts," Draco said. "The room of requirement. The room where you hide things." "How?" "Because I spent most of 6th year in that room," Draco said. "The room of hidden things. I felt something wrong in there and I didn't know what it was." "I know now. We have to go back," Harry said. "To Hogwarts and to Gringotts." "Both. Gringotts first," Hermione said. "The security at Gringotts is—" She stopped. "Can you help us with the vault, Draco? What do you know about Lestrange vault security?" "Enough," Draco said. "My family used a different vault section, but the protocols are similar. What specifically do you need?" "Everything," she said, and opened a notebook. "The capture they were taken in February. It wasn't poor planning. It was a hair. one of Draco's hairs, transferred to Harry's robes during a narrow moment in a Wiltshire lane where they'd been moving and Draco had been close. The Snatchers found them by tracking the Dark Mark's proximity signature, which Draco had not warned them about because he hadn't known about it until the Snatchers caught Harry and pulled off his face, and one of them said, "Check the Malfoy boy, he'll have it." The signature tracks within range. They were brought to Malfoy Manor. Draco had known this was a possible outcome. He'd thought about it in the abstract. The abstract and the actual were different in the way that knowing a potion is poisonous and drinking it are different. He stood in the drawing room of his childhood home, in the room where Voldemort held meetings, with his father on one side and his mother on the other, and Bellatrix behind him, and Harry Potter battered and barely recognisable under a stinging jinx in front of him. "Draco," his father said. "Is that?" Lucius's voice was not what it had been. 14 months in Azkaban had taken something from him that Draco had never expected to see taken. "Is that Harry Potter?" Everyone in the room looked at Draco. Harry looked at him from under the swollen face. Draco looked at Harry, at the scar that was barely visible, at the green eyes. "I can't be certain," Draco said. His aunt's wand arm came up. "Draco, the stinging jinx has changed his features substantially," Draco said. "It could be Potter. I can't say it is." The Snatcher said. "The Snatcher tracked a signature that matched multiple people," Draco said. "I'm not certain. I won't say I'm certain when I'm not." Bellatrix looked at him. Her look had changed from the grounds in June. It had taken on a quality he recognised from watching her with other people she'd already decided about. "Put them in the cellar," she said. "I'll verify the identity." She paused. "After I deal with the girl." "No," Draco said. Bellatrix turned to him very slowly. "You're not touching her," Draco said. His voice came out steadier than he'd expected. "She's a prisoner. You'll verify the identity and contact the Dark Lord. I'll do it," Bellatrix said. "However I want to do it." "You don't give orders here, Draco. Not after the tower. Not after." She smiled. "Not after everything." She took Hermione into the adjacent room. Draco stood in the drawing room and listened. This was the thing he'd think about later, the thing he'd keep returning to. He stood in the drawing room of his own home and he listened. And he could not move, because moving would have ended everything prematurely and ended it badly. He calculated every second of it. He stood still and he made the calculation. And the calculation was correct. It was the right call, tactically, and he hated every second of it with a ferocity that surprised him. Dobby appeared in the ceiling. Everything after that happened fast. Draco cut the binding on Hermione's wrists with the penknife from his boot the second Dobby created enough chaos. "Garden door," he said. Low. 30 seconds. He looked at him, the look of someone checking whether this was another trap, and then deciding in the space of a breath that it wasn't. He moved. They got out. Dobby took them. The knife came from Bellatrix's hand as they disappeared, and Dobby was in the air between it and Hermione, and then they were at Shell Cottage, and the knife was in Dobby, and Dobby was on the ground. Harry was on the ground next to Dobby. He was saying things that Draco couldn't hear properly because his ears were still ringing from the apparition. The small elf looked at Harry with the expression that Draco had seen on the faces of people who had done what they meant to do, and who had done it completely. Draco stood at the edge of it. He had grown up with Dobby in his house. Dobby had been his family's elf for years, terrified, bound, used as furniture in the same way that Draco had used Crabbe and Goyle as furniture. He had not been kind to Dobby. He had not noticed Dobby particularly. And Dobby had died, putting himself between Bellatrix's knife and Hermione Granger. Ron dug the grave. He insisted on it. Bill Weasley offered. and Ron said no and dug it himself in the garden at Shell Cottage in the February cold, and Harry laid Dobby in it, and nobody said very much. Afterward, Ron came to stand next to Draco. Draco didn't look at him. "You cut her loose," Ron said. "Yes," Draco said. "Before Dobby got there," Ron said. "I mean, before you knew Dobby was coming. You'd already," "Yes," Draco said. Ron was quiet for a moment. Could have let it go differently. "Yes," Draco said. That would have been "yes," Draco said. Ron put his hand briefly on Draco's shoulder. Once, quickly, the way you'd touch a wall for balance in the dark. Then he walked back toward the cottage. Shell Cottage, to Gringotts Bill Weasley's cottage, was small and smelled of salt and the specific warm chaos of a Weasley household that had recently absorbed 5 extra people. Bill looked at Draco with the controlled assessment of someone who had heard the whole story and who had made a decision about it before Draco walked through the door. "You helped them," Bill said, on the first morning when the others were elsewhere. "Yes," Draco said. "You're going after Gringotts next," Bill said. "They are," Draco said. "I can't go in. My family's account is too well known." "The Lestrange Vault," Bill said. "Yes," Draco said. Bill worked at Gringotts, had worked there for years. He looked at Draco with the particular look of someone assembling a picture from available information. "The vault security has changed since Voldemort started using them as a second base," Bill said. "I don't know exactly how, but I know it's changed." "What was it before?" Draco said. Bill told him. It took 20 minutes. Draco listened carefully and cross-referenced against what he knew about Gringotts security from his father's accounts of the outer vaults, and asked 3 specific questions about the inner vault section, and by the end of it they had a working picture of what they were likely to encounter. "You're good at this," Bill said, not complimenting. "Observing, my father spent 11 years making sure I knew how things worked," Draco said. "Most of it I'd rather not have known. Most of it came in useful, though," Bill said. "Yes," Draco said. They went in 2 days later. Harry, Ron, and Hermione in disguise as Bellatrix, which was either the most reckless plan or the most brilliant plan, depending on how it went. Draco stayed at Shell Cottage because Draco walking into Gringotts was not survivable, and because the information he could provide was more valuable than his physical presence. It took 3 hours. When they came back on a dragon, which was one of the sentences Draco had expected never to apply to people he knew personally. They'd barely made it out. Hermione was shaking. Ron had taken a bite from something in the vault. Harry looked like a person who had run out of adrenaline about 20 minutes ago and was running on the memory of it. They had destroyed the cup. "How?" Draco said. "Basilisk Fang," Harry said. Hermione and Ron went back to the chamber, during the hunt, weeks ago, to get them specifically. Draco looked at Hermione. "You planned for this?" "Of course I planned for it," she said. "I keep things," Hermione said. "She keeps everything," Ron said. "It was useful," Hermione said. "We noticed," Ron said. Draco looked at the 3 of them, at this absurd, impossible group of people who had ridden a dragon out of Gringotts and who were arguing about whether keeping a fang was reasonable. And he thought, they're going to do it. They're actually going to do it. "The diadem," he said. "I know," Harry said. "We have to go back to Hogwarts." "I'll go in as myself," Draco said. They all looked at him. "I was a student there," Draco said. "The Carrows know me. I can walk in, tell them I've been in hiding since the tower, tell them I panicked and ran and I've come back. They might not believe me. They'll torture you for information first," Hermione said. "Possibly," Draco said, "but they'll let me in, which gets Harry and Ron into the school while they're dealing with me." "That's not a plan," Harry said. "That's a distraction where you get hurt." "I'm aware of what it is," Draco said. "We're not doing it," Harry said. "Harry, we're not," Harry said. "There's another way in." "What way?" Draco said. "Aberforth," Harry said. There's a passage. He'll help us. He might, Draco said. He also might not. He will, Harry said. He said it with the certainty of someone who had been thinking about Aberforth for weeks. He's helped before. He'll help again. Draco looked at him. You've thought about this a lot. I've thought about all of it, Harry said. Constantly, for months. He met Draco's eyes. We go to Aberforth. We go in through the passage. We find the diadem. We get out. And the battle? Draco said. Because going back to Hogwarts now means the battle starts, Harry said. I know. You're ready for that, Draco said. I've been ready for that since October, Harry said. I've just been waiting for the other pieces. Right, Draco said. Are you ready for it? Harry said. Draco thought about this honestly. About what being ready for it meant. About his mother at the manor. About whether she'd switched sides or whether she was still performing loyalty. About Crabbe, whom he'd seen die in his mind 100 times in a scenario he hadn't lived through yet. About whatever happened on the other side of a final battle when you'd been on the wrong side to start. No, Draco said. Harry looked at him. But I'm going, Draco said. That's the same thing, right? Something happened on Harry's face. Not a smile. Close to one. Yeah, Harry said. That's the same thing. Hogwarts they came through the passage from Aberforth's pub into the room of requirement. And what Draco found was a school that felt nothing like the school he'd left. He'd known the Carrows were brutal. He'd heard the reports through his mother's contacts. He'd known intellectually that Hogwarts under Death Eater rule was not the Hogwarts where he'd grown up. Intellectual knowledge was one thing. Neville Longbottom was another. Neville came through the door to the room of requirement with a face that had healed badly from something, and with the kind of tiredness in him that comes from months of sustained fight, and he stopped when he saw Draco. A crowd of people was behind him. Students Draco knew, students he didn't. All of them watching. Malfoy, Neville said. Longbottom, Draco said. He's with us, Harry said. Neville looked at Harry. At Draco. Back at Harry. Right, Neville said. He didn't argue. He just nodded and moved to make space. The students behind him were less easy about it. Draco could hear voices, see expressions, feel the particular quality of anger that people who had been hurt by a category of person directed at the nearest representative of that category. He didn't blame them. He stood near the door and let Harry do the talking and watched the room reconfigure itself around the news that something was about to end. Pansy Parkinson found him. She walked up to him with the expression of someone who has spent months deciding something and who has arrived at the decision. Where have you been? She said. Away, Draco said. With them, she said. Yes, Draco said. She looked at him. He waited for the contempt, the accusation. What she said was, Is it going to work? I don't know, Draco said. She nodded. Crabbe, she said. I know, Draco said. He's been. She stopped. He's going to fight with the Death Eaters tonight. He told me this morning. He's excited about it. Draco stood with this. I can't stop him, he said. I know, she said. She looked away. I just thought you should know. He walked back to the Slytherin students in the corner. Draco looked at Harry, who was mapping the school with Neville and the other DA members, who was being exactly what Harry Potter was when things needed doing. Completely present, completely focused, working through every person in the room as if each of them mattered individually. He found the room of requirement with Ron and Tudor members who knew the castle. Draco navigated them through the 7th floor with the same sureness he'd navigated every part of this castle for 7 years. Because the castle was his too. He'd been here as long as any of them. And whatever else was true, it was true that he knew where the room of hidden things was and how to get there. The diadem was where he'd felt it. He recognized the feeling now, the wrongness, the pressure, the thing that pretended to be cold, but wasn't. He pointed. There, Harry looked at it. Something happened on his face that Draco had come to recognize as Harry processing the thing he had to do and then doing it. Then, Crabbe was there. He'd followed them in, Draco didn't know how, and he had the expression of someone who had been told what was right and who was going to be right in the most available way. He cast the Fiend Fire. The fire was enormous. Fiend Fire was not a spell for students, it was not a spell for most adults, it was barely a spell in the controlled sense. It was more like releasing something that had never been meant to be released. It filled the room of hidden things from wall to ceiling. They ran. Harry and Ron on broomsticks, Draco behind them, Crabbe and Goyle behind Draco. Crabbe fell. He fell into the fire he'd made, and the fire took him in the way Fiend Fire took things, completely, finally, without the possibility of undoing. Draco got Goyle. He grabbed him from behind as Goyle's fingers slipped from Ron's broom, and he held on, and the three of them got out through the door, and the fire went with the room, and the room went with the diadem, and they were in the corridor with the heat still pressing through the door, and Goyle was on the floor, and Draco was on the floor next to him. Goyle was shaking. Draco was not shaking. He was, somewhere very still inside himself. He had watched Vincent Crabbe die. He had grown up next to Vincent Crabbe. He had never liked Vincent Crabbe particularly, which was a true thing and a terrible thing to be true, and Vincent Crabbe was dead in a room that Draco knew better than almost any other room in the school. Ron's hand came down, extended, an offer. Draco took it. Ron pulled him up. "Come on," Ron said. "It's not finished yet." The Battle of Hogwarts was not like anything Draco had imagined it would be. He had imagined it as a unified thing, a single massive event with a clear beginning and middle and end. It was not that. It was a dozen different catastrophes happening simultaneously in different corridors and courtyards and towers. And navigating it was less like fighting a battle and more like trying to manage a disaster with a wand. He fought where he could fight. He knew the school's geometry better than most of the Death Eaters did, because the Death Eaters had been using it as a staging ground for months without ever needing to understand it. And he used that knowledge. He directed Order members through passages the Death Eaters hadn't found. He identified choke points where small numbers could hold against larger ones. He was not the most skilled fighter in any room he entered, but he was the person who knew where the rooms connected, and that was worth something. He found his parents in the 4th floor corridor. His mother first. She came around a corner in robes that had been through a fight, her hair half down, looking for him. She stopped when she saw him, and the expression on her face was the one she had when she had been managing not to show fear for an extended period and had run out of management. "You're alive," she said. "Yes," he said. She put her arms around him briefly. One moment, then she stepped back and she was Narcissa Malfoy again, composed, reading the situation. "Your father is somewhere on the 3rd floor, she said. "Is he?" Draco started. "He's not fighting," she said. "He's not fighting for either side. He's looking for you." She looked at him steadily. "You need to know that I told Voldemort Potter was dead." Draco stared at her. "In the forest," she said. "He sent me to verify. Potter was alive. I said he was dead." "Why?" Draco said. "And then, before she could answer, you wanted to get into the castle. To find me." "Yes," she said. "He could kill you for that," Draco said. "I know," she said. Draco looked at his mother, at the woman who had been managing impossible circumstances for longer than he'd been alive, who had kept their family alive through a war by being smarter and more careful than everyone around her, who had told Voldemort Harry Potter was dead because she wanted to find her son. "Go," she said. "It's not finished." "I know," he said. "I'll find you after." He went. He was in the Great Hall when it ended. He was at the edge of it. He was always at the edge of things now. He had found his natural position, and it was the edge, close enough to be present and far enough to not be the centre of anything. And he watched Harry Potter face Voldemort, and he watched the wands connect, and he watched it resolve in the way that Dumbledore had told Harry it would resolve. Years ago, in lessons that had led here. Voldemort fell. It wasn't dramatic. It was anticlimactic, actually, the way very large things often are when they happen. A person, falling, like any person. Not a monster, not something incomprehensible. A person who had made himself into something terrible, and who had, at the last, been mortal after all. Draco stood in the Great Hall, in the silence that followed, and watched the living find each other. The Weasley family was somewhere near the middle of the hall. He could see red hair, could hear Molly Weasley's voice. Harry was being surrounded. Hermione was next to Ron, who had his arm around her, and for once in his life, Ron Weasley's instinct to be physically present with the people he loved was exactly right. Draco looked away. He found his father on the second floor, sitting against a wall, looking at nothing. Lucius Malfoy looked like a man who had been reduced down to the essential components and then left there. He looked up when Draco came around the corner. "You're alive," Lucius said. "Yes," Draco said. Lucius looked at him, at whatever Draco looked like after a year in a tent and a night in a battle. "You were with Potter," he said. "It wasn't an accusation." "Yes," Draco said. Lucius was quiet. "We should go," Draco said. "Find Mother." "Yes," Lucius said. He got up. He moved differently than he had before Azkaban, more slowly, with care, as though not entirely trusting his own body. Draco walked next to his father through the school. They didn't speak. There was too much to say to start anywhere, and the hallway was full of people moving in different directions, and it wasn't the moment for any of it. He found his mother on the grounds. He left his father with her, and he walked back through the entrance hall to the Great Hall, and he stood in the doorway looking at the room full of people who had survived and people who hadn't, and the specific, impossible mixture of grief and relief that the morning after looks like. Harry found him. Of course Harry found him. "You're in one piece," Harry said. "Barely," Draco said. "You?" "Barely," Harry said. They stood in the doorway together. Through the hall, Ron was talking to his brothers. All his brothers, Draco noted. Fred Weasley was there, which meant the wall hadn't taken him, or it had taken him and then let him go, or something else had changed the night's geography. Hermione was next to Ron, who was next to Fred, and the three of them were standing with their arms around each other in the way that people do when they're checking that the physical reality of each other is still there. "The last one," Harry said. "Was you?" Draco said. "And the theory worked." "Yeah," Harry said. He said it with the exhaustion of someone who has been carrying the knowledge that they might die, and who had been right about not dying, but who had done the dying part anyway, and was still processing it. "Your mother told Voldemort you were dead," Draco said. Harry looked at him. "In the forest," Draco said. "She checked your pulse, and she lied to him. I'm assuming you didn't know." "No," Harry said. "She did it to find me," Draco said, "which is not a thing I knew how to feel about at the time, and which I still don't entirely." Harry looked at the Great Hall. "She saved my life," he said. "She lied to the most dangerous dark wizard of the century to find her son," Draco said. "The fact that it also saved your life was coincidental." "Right," Harry said. "Yes, A beat." "I'd like to thank her." "Later," Draco said. Later, Harry agreed. They stood in the doorway. Trials and after the trials took 3 months. Draco had expected this and prepared for it, or tried to prepare for it, which was not the same as being prepared. The Wizengamot interviewed him 4 times. The ministry's new investigative committee interviewed him twice. A subcommittee on Death Eater activity interviewed him once and spent the entire session on the Vanishing Cabinet, which was fair. The Vanishing Cabinet had let Death Eaters into Hogwarts and people had been hurt and Draco had built it and there was no version of that which was anything other than what it was. He told them everything. That was his approach, and he had decided it before the first interview, and he held to it throughout. He did not manage the presentation. He did not frame anything favourably. He answered every question with everything he knew, including the things that reflected badly on him, including the things he'd rather not have said in a room full of people who were going to write them down. Harry testified. Hermione testified. Ron testified, which Harry later told Draco had surprised the committee more than Harry's testimony did. Ron doesn't usually, Harry started. Talk to official committees, Draco said. Not voluntarily, Harry said. He basically said you were difficult and annoying and he was glad you were there. He paused. That's not a direct quote, but it's roughly what it translated to. That's a Weasley character reference, Draco said. It really is, Harry agreed. The verdict was conditional. 2 years of ministry supervision, restricted travel, mandatory cooperation on ongoing Death Eater investigations. No Azkaban. He came out of the ministry into the September sun, and Hermione was on the steps. I thought you'd gone, he said. I waited, she said. He stood next to her. The ministry behind them. The city in front of them. The conditions include mandatory cooperation on ongoing investigations, she said. I know, he said. I read them. There's a department being set up, she said, tracking dark artifacts that were distributed during the war. People who know what to look for. You're recruiting me, he said. I'm telling you about an option, she said, while standing outside the ministry where I just received my verdict, he said. Timing seemed efficient, she said. He looked at her. She met his gaze with the particular directness that had always been Hermione Granger's most unsettling quality, not unkind, just completely uninterested in softening anything that didn't need softening. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I'm asking, she said. Ron came down the steps. Harry behind him. Coffee? Ron said. Draco looked at him. You're asking me for coffee. I'm asking if you want coffee, Ron said. That's different. You don't have to come. There's a place 2 streets over, Harry said. Muggle place. Nobody'll recognize us. Draco looked at the 3 of them. At this group that had been many things. Enemy, inconvenience, liability. Whatever uneasy thing they'd arrived at. And that was, on the steps of the ministry on a September morning, extending an ordinary invitation. Fine, he said. Coffee. They walked down the ministry steps together. Not in any particular formation. Just 4 people walking. Ron and Harry went ahead, arguing about something Quidditch related. Hermione fell into step next to Draco. You didn't manage it, she said. What? He said. In the interviews, she said. You could have managed it. You're good at it. You didn't. I noticed there wasn't much point, he said. When did you notice that? She said. He thought about it. About when the calculation had changed, when the instinct to manage had started arriving slower than the other instinct, the one that turned out to be the one that mattered. Somewhere around the time I was standing in a tent waiting to hear if 3 people I'd started giving a damn about made it out of the ministry in one piece, he said. Hermione didn't say anything. Which is not a thing I'd have anticipated, he said. Giving a damn. No, she said. I don't suppose you would have. Ahead of them, Ron said something to Harry that made Harry laugh. The real laugh. The one that arrived without warning. Draco had heard it maybe a dozen times over the past year, and it was always slightly startling. He's going to be insufferable about being right, Draco said. Ron? Hermione said. About what? About whatever it is Ron's going to say he was right about, Draco said. He'll find something. He'll make it work. He usually does, Hermione said. I know, Draco said. They turned onto the street with the coffee shop. The city moved around them, doing what cities did, continuous, busy, completely indifferent to whatever had just ended. Draco had grown up in the wizarding world. He had spent 16 years understanding himself in relation to it, where the Malfoys sat in the hierarchy, what the name was worth, what it could do and what it owed. He understood all of that differently now, which was not the same as understanding himself differently, but it was in the same direction. He was not redeemed. He was not good, in any clean sense. He had done things that were wrong, and some of them were documented in Wizengamot records, and some of them were his alone, and all of them were there. He had also, alongside 3 people he had written off before he knew them, done things that mattered. Not because he became a good person, because the circumstances he was in required things of him, and he met them. And meeting them had changed things he hadn't expected to be changeable. He was still Draco Malfoy. He was Draco Malfoy who had spent a year in a tent and fought a battle and watched someone die and stood in a drawing room and bought 3 people time with a sentence. He could work with that. What kind of coffee? Ron said, at the counter. Black, Draco said. Course it is, Ron said. And ordered. 2 years later, the Dark Artifact Department turned out to be real. Hermione had not been speculating about it. She had, in the 3 months between the battle and his verdict, laid the groundwork for an actual operational department, because this was what Hermione did when she decided something needed doing. Draco worked there for 5 years, the first 2 under the mandatory conditions, the last 3 because the work was useful and he was good at it, and being good at something useful turned out to be the most interesting thing that had happened to him since Hogwarts. He saw Harry regularly. This had evolved from occasional dinners into something more frequent. The kind of frequency that happens when 2 people keep turning up in the same professional spaces and keep ending up in the same conversations and keep finding those conversations worth having. Harry was an aura. Their work overlapped more than either of them would have predicted in the Hog's Head back room. He saw Ron less often, and with the easy quality of 2 people who had reached a point of mutual understanding that didn't require much maintenance. Ron had married Hermione. Draco had not expected to be invited to the wedding, and then had been, and Ron's only comment when Draco arrived was, "There are people here who knew us at school, so try not to look like you're judging the flower arrangement." "I'm not judging it," Draco said. "Your face is," Ron said. "The flowers are fine," Draco said. "The flowers are great," Ron said. "The flowers are fine," Draco said again, because some things were not going to change. Ron had laughed. His mother was in London. She had declined to return to the manor, which was in ongoing legal dispute, and which she referred to as the situation in Wiltshire in the way that she had always referred to difficult things, as administrative matters that could be managed from a distance. She was managing well. She had opinions about his flat, which she expressed. She had less opinions about his work, which she expressed approval of, which was more unexpected. His father was not in London. Lucius had been convicted and had served 18 months. After his release, he had gone to France and then to Italy, and the letters came every few weeks. Careful, formal, nothing quite the same as the letters he had written when Draco was at school. Draco wrote back. He was not sure they would arrive at anything. He wasn't sure they wouldn't. He was in his office at the ministry on a Tuesday morning when Hermione knocked on the door. She did this. She knocked even though the door was open, because she had decided early in her ministry career that knocking on open doors was a marker of respect she was going to extend consistently. "There's an object in Kent," she said. Report came in last night. Possible dark artifact. Partial destruction. Unknown maker. "Unknown maker in Kent," Draco said. He looked at the report she put on his desk. "This signature I know," she said. "That's not unknown," he said. That's Borgin. Borgin made 3 artifacts with this signature before the war. There were reports of Borgin's stock being cleared out, she said. Before the ministry moved on Nocturne Alley, he said. Someone got ahead of the clearance. He stood up. We need to go to Kent. That's what I thought, she said. He got his coat. They went to Kent. This was the job. Not heroics, not battles, not the dramatic forward motion of a story with a clear villain and a climax. The careful, technical, ongoing work of clearing up what the war had left behind, which was more than anyone had fully counted on, and which was going to take longer than anyone had fully counted on, and which required people who understood what they were dealing with. He understood what he was dealing with. He'd been standing next to it his whole life. The job was useful. He was useful. That was the whole thing. He ran into Neville Longbottom outside the ministry on a November morning, 3 years after the battle. Neville was coming out as Draco was going in. He'd grown into himself. The permanent faint scarring from the Carrow's year had faded, but not entirely, and he moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who had been frightened for a long time and who had come out the other side of it without losing anything essential. Malfoy, Neville said. Longbottom, Draco said. They stood on the ministry steps. Heard you're doing good work, Neville said. Heard you're teaching at Hogwarts, Draco said. Herbology, Neville said. Yeah, of all the things I would have predicted, Draco said. What would you have predicted? Neville said. Draco thought about it, about the Neville Longbottom of first year who he'd bullied with the comfortable thoughtlessness of someone who had never examined why, about the Neville who had held Hogwarts together during the Carrow's year, about the Neville who had killed the snake. Not herbology, Draco said, but I would have predicted it would be something quiet that turned out to matter enormously. So maybe herbology is exactly right. Neville looked at him. That almost sounded like a compliment. Don't push it, Draco said. Neville laughed. Not at Draco, the real kind, surprised out of him. He went down the steps. Draco went up them. Inside the ministry, Hermione was waiting with the Kent report and 3 new reports from the overnight department, and the day began in the way the days began now, with work and purpose, and the ongoing, unfinished, imperfect business of the world. Draco put his coat on the back of his chair. He picked up the Kent report. He wasn't the person he'd been in June, when a deflected curse had closed off every other available direction. He was also, in ways that he found more interesting to examine than he would have predicted, not a completely different person. He was Draco Malfoy, who had grown up in a family that gave him certain tools and certain blind spots, and who had spent a year in close quarters with people who had forced the blind spots into the open, and who was doing something with what he found when they opened. Not good. He'd never claimed good. But here, and working, and in the room, which was, he'd concluded, as much as anyone could honestly claim. The report needed reading. He read it. The day moved forward. Not redeemed, not transformed. Still Draco Malfoy. Just the version that had to live inside the consequences of one June night, and found out, against every expectation, that living inside them was worth it. That's all. That's the whole thing. Expanded scenes the problem of being useless in the first week. Draco understood the tactical value of everything he was contributing. The Regulus information. The Death Eater structure. The Gringotts layout as he knew it. He was useful in a way that justified his presence and provided him with a clear identity within the group. Asset. Information source. The person who knew things. In the second week, they had used everything immediately applicable and were waiting. Waiting was the thing nobody had told him about. He had not anticipated waiting. He had pictured the year, in the abstract, in the few seconds he'd had to picture it before diving into survival mode, as a continuous forward motion. Problem, solution, Next problem. What it actually was, most of the time, was a tent and 3 people and the specific grinding quality of days when there was nothing actionable to do. Harry dealt with it by moving constantly, walking the perimeter of the camp, running exercises he'd clearly been doing for years, maintenance tasks performed with the focus of someone channeling anxiety into productivity. Ron dealt with it by chess, by cleaning things, by the particular restlessness of a large person in a small space. Hermione dealt with it by research. But even research had limits, and there were evenings when she put her books down and just sat. Draco sat. He had never been good at sitting. At Hogwarts, he'd always had something to occupy himself. Class, Quidditch, the social architecture of Slytherin House that required constant management. Here there was nothing to manage. The tent's internal politics were not complex enough to require his skills. He was not trusted enough to be sent anywhere. He was not needed for anything when there was no intelligence problem currently active. On the 8th day, Ron put a chess set in front of him. "You play?" Ron said. "Obviously," Draco said. "Good," Ron said. "Because I'm tired of playing myself." Draco looked at the set. At Ron. "You play yourself. It's not as stupid as it sounds," Ron said. "You can run through scenarios. It is as stupid as it sounds," Draco said. "Fine," Ron said. "Then play me instead." Draco pulled up the chair. Ron won the first game in 22 moves, which was faster than Draco had anticipated. He was aggressive with his pawns in a way that left his major pieces exposed, which Draco had identified as a weakness in the 3rd move, and then found wasn't a weakness at all. Ron sacrificed pawns to create lanes that his rooks exploited with a directness that Draco's more defensive game couldn't react to quickly enough. "You play like you want to win in the next 4 moves no matter what it costs," Draco said. "That's just how I play," Ron said. "It shouldn't work," Draco said. "But it does," Ron said. "Most of the time," Draco said. "Yeah," Ron said. He set the pieces back up. "You play like you're trying not to lose. Defensive, hold everything, give nothing." "That's sound strategy," Draco said. "It is," Ron said, "until someone's willing to spend more than you are." Draco looked at the board. "Again," he said. They played for 3 hours. Draco lost 4 games and won 2, and the 2 he won were both close. By the 3rd hour, he had started adjusting, spending pieces earlier, accepting losses to create advantages, and Ron had started playing more carefully, recognizing the adjustment. Harry, on the other side of the tent, was watching. "You're playing differently," Harry said to Draco. "I noticed he adapts," Draco said. "He always adapts," Harry said. "That's the annoying thing about playing Ron. He reads the other player." "I read people," Ron said. "Chess players especially." "What does my game say about me?" Draco said. Ron thought about it. "You want to keep everything safe until you're certain," Ron said, "which means you sometimes miss windows. But when you do commit, you commit completely." He paused. "That actually sounds about right for you in general." Draco looked at him. Ron looked back without apology. "Yeah," Draco said. "It probably does." The night Draco nearly ruined everything in December, he made a mistake. Not from malice. Not even from ambition or carelessness. From loneliness, which was the thing he hadn't accounted for, and which arrived at 2 a.m. on a night when he couldn't sleep, and the tent was dark, and he knew that his mother was somewhere in Wiltshire doing what she always did, holding things together through sheer force of will, and that he had no way to contact her, and no way to know if she was all right. He knew someone. Not a Death Eater, an old family contact, someone peripheral to everything, someone his father had trusted who had stayed neutral. A private legal firm that handled wizarding estate matters. He sent a letter. A careful letter. Nothing actionable. Just an inquiry about his mother's affairs that would require the firm to contact her. He thought about it before he sent it. He thought it was safe. 2 days later, Harry was on the perimeter check and he came back running. Movement, Harry said. About a mile east. Moving this way. How many? Hermione said. I counted 5 signatures, Harry said. 5 1 signatures active. How did they? Ron started. Someone gave away our location, Harry said. He wasn't looking at Draco, but everyone in the tent was thinking the same thing. It wasn't intentional, Draco said. Now Harry looked at him. I contacted a family solicitor, Draco said. I thought it was. He stopped. The logic that had seemed sound at 2 a.m. had collapsed entirely. I needed to know if my mother was. You contacted someone, Harry said. From the tent. Not using our location. The letter came from somewhere, Harry said. Magic leaves a signature. The letter? He looked at Hermione. It would have created a trail, Hermione said. Not an obvious one, but if they were looking, they're always looking, Harry said. His voice was controlled. He was angrier than Draco had ever seen him, and was managing it with visible effort. We've been careful. For months. Every single thing we do, we check for traces. And you, I know, Draco said. Do you? Harry said. Yes, Draco said. I know, I made a mistake. I'm not going to, he stopped. We need to move now. The argument happens after. A beat. He's right, Hermione said. I know he's right, Harry said. He was still looking at Draco. Pack. 3 minutes. They packed in 3 minutes. They apparated twice before the signatures on the perimeter faded. When they stopped in a different hillside in a different county, everyone's breathing was returning to normal and the adrenaline was receding and leaving behind it the specific quality of aftermath. Ron sat down on the cold ground. That was close. Yes, Draco said. Really close, Ron said. I know, Draco said. Your solicitor, Ron said. I shouldn't have sent it, Draco said. I knew the risk and I sent it anyway because he stopped. He was not accustomed to finishing sentences that began with because I. It won't happen again. It can't happen again, Harry said. He was across the clearing, arms folded. We almost lost everything tonight because you couldn't, because I was worried about my mother, Draco said. Which is not an excuse, but it's what it was. Harry looked at him. Harry's default was generosity. Draco had learned. It was the thing that surprised him repeatedly about Harry, the speed at which fury gave way to something more complicated. It was not comfortable to be on the receiving end of, because it required him to be seen as a person rather than a problem. You should have told us, Harry said, if you were worried about your mother. We could have... Could have what? Draco said. Found another way, Harry said. There isn't another way, Draco said. Not from here. Not in the middle of this. I know that. I knew it before I sent the letter. I sent it anyway. Did you get an answer? Hermione said. Draco looked at her. Did you get an answer? She said again. About your mother. No, he said. We moved before it would have come. She nodded. She wrote something in her notebook and closed it. Next time, she said. Tell us. We'll find a way to check. Through channels we know are clean. There might not be a way, he said. Then we'll deal with that when we know it, she said. But tell us first. Harry sat down. Ron was still on the ground. The hillside was dark and cold and smelled of winter and sheep. Right, Harry said. We move camp in the morning. New rotation. Different pattern. I can help with the new wards, Draco said. I know, Harry said. You can. Nobody said anything else. They set up the tent in the dark and they slept badly, and in the morning they broke camp and moved to a different hillside, and the work continued and nothing was resolved cleanly. Which was correct, because the mistake had been real, and real mistakes didn't disappear into apology. What Ron said in February the argument happened at 4 p.m. and came from nowhere, which was the thing about arguments in a tent. They accumulated from all the nothing conversations and the small frictions and the managed moments, and then something small tipped the balance, and everything that had been in suspension dropped at once. It started because Draco had said something to Hermione about her calculations for the Ministry infiltration. He had said it the way he said most things, directly, with no particular warmth attached to it. The comment itself was fine. The tone was the kind of tone he'd been working on and had not entirely fixed. "I've already checked that," Hermione said. Her voice was tight. "I know you've checked it," Draco said. "I'm saying the output may not account for the ward change on the 4th floor." "I know about the ward change on the 4th floor," she said. "All right," he said. "All right," she repeated, with something underneath it. "Hermione," Ron said. "Not as an intervention, as a question." "I'm fine," she said. "You're not," Ron said. "I am," she said. "It's fine, Ron. He does this," Ron said. He was talking to Harry. "Ron," Harry said. "He does this thing where everything he says is technically correct and somehow still makes you feel like you've been weighed and found wanting," Ron said. "Like you should have thought of everything he thought of already. Every single time." "I'm aware of what I do," Draco said. "Are you?" Ron said. He turned. He was not shouting. That was the thing. Ron's voice was completely even, because it's been 4 months. "And you've been useful, I'll say it. You've been useful. But every time you open your mouth as this," he stopped. "Do you know what you sound like?" "Ron," Harry said. "Like someone who's still trying to win," Ron said. "We're not competing. We're doing the same job. We're on the same side. And you still come in like there's a hierarchy, like you need to place yourself above everyone else before you can talk." Draco stood with this. "I'm working on it," Draco said. "I know you're working on it," Ron said. "I can see it. The fact that you're working on it is the only reason we're still." He stopped. "But 4 months isn't enough. You spent 16 years being told you were better than everyone, and that's not." He looked at Hermione. "It's not fair to her. Every time he does it to her specifically, it's not fair." "Ron," Hermione said. I know you can handle it," Ron said. "That doesn't mean you should have to." A silence. Draco looked at Hermione. At her face, which was going through the specific expression of someone who is managing their feelings about being defended and their feelings about the thing being defended against simultaneously. "Weasley's right," Draco said. Everyone looked at him. "Not about all of it," Draco said, "but about the specific problem with Granger specifically." He forced himself to hold eye contact with her. "When I do that, when I come in with the correction before acknowledging what's already right, you worked for it. You've always worked for everything you got. And when I do that thing, it implies the working wasn't enough." "Which is?" He stopped. "Wrong. And I know it's wrong. I'm going to keep doing it sometimes because I was trained to do it and training is stubborn. But you can tell me to shut up when I do." Hermione blinked. "Genuinely," he said. "Tell me to shut up." Ron stared at him. "What?" Draco said. "Nothing," Ron said. He shook his head. "Right, okay, Harry," from the corner, was making a very careful effort to look like he was reading his map and not watching all of this. "The Ministry plan," Hermione said. 4th floor wards." She pushed the notebook toward Draco. "Show me what I missed." "You didn't miss it," he said. "It was a newer edition. My father mentioned it in a letter 2 years ago, and it's not in any of the published records." "Then I couldn't have known it from research," she said. "No," he said. "Useful then," she said. "That's the idea," he said. The forest Harry came back from the forest at Malfoy Manor wrong. Not visibly wrong, not bleeding or cursed. He walked into the cottage on the grounds of Shell Cottage in the pre-dawn, and he sat down at the kitchen table with the expression of someone who had recently died and come back, and who was still working out the implications. Draco was the only one awake. He'd been awake for the last 3 hours because he hadn't been sleeping much since the manor. "You went in," Draco said. Harry looked at him. "Into the forest," Draco said. "Just now." Yes, Harry said. You walked out to meet him, Draco said. Yes, Harry said. And now you're back, Draco said. The theory worked, Harry said. Draco sat down across from him. At the kitchen table in Shell Cottage, in the pre-dawn quiet, the two of them. Outside somewhere the battle was continuing. They could hear it, faint and distant, like a storm in the next county. The theory worked, Draco said. I died, Harry said. Or something that was dying. He stopped. Dumbledore was there. We talked. He had more information than he stopped again. He knew I'd come back. He designed the whole thing so I'd come back. He designed a lot of things, Draco said. Yeah, Harry said. He put his hands on the table. He looked at them. I should go back in. Yes, Draco said. There are still yes, Draco said. I know. Harry looked up. You stayed out. I fought in the grounds, Draco said. I've been, he gestured at himself. His robes were scorch-marked from a close encounter with a spell that had missed, but not by much. I've been out here. Are you? I'm fine, Draco said. Harry stood up. He looked like someone gathering themselves from component parts. My mother, Harry said. She's in the castle, Draco said. As of an hour ago, she was in the East Wing. I need to tell her, Harry said, that he stopped what she did, telling him I was dead. It saved your life, Draco said, or made it possible to come back. Same thing. It's not the same thing, Harry said. All right, Draco. It's not the same thing. They stood in the kitchen. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten from black to the very dark blue of almost dawn. The sounds of the battle were closer now. Do you know what the worst thing I ever thought about you was? Harry said. Probably not, Draco said. Not the insults, Harry said. Not the things you said. The worst thing I thought was that you'd go through life on the winning side and never deal with the consequences of anything. Draco said nothing. I was wrong, Harry said. Which I'm not. He stopped. I'm not pleased you had to deal with consequences. I'm just saying I was wrong. I was on the wrong side, Draco said. And then the side I ended up on kept winning, which might look like fortune but wasn't, and I watched Crabbe die, and my father is... He stopped. The consequences are there. They'll be there for a long time. Yeah, Harry said. Go back in, Draco said. This conversation is the kind of conversation that happens after. Harry almost smiled. You sound like Hermione. She's been influencing me, Draco said, against my will. Yeah, Harry said. She does that. He went back into the castle. Draco followed. The sky kept lightening. The long middle most of the year didn't look like the dramatic parts. Most of the year looked like this. 3 people arguing about the best place to camp in a November rain. Ron's ongoing effort to make the tent's cooking equipment produce something other than charred soup, with occasional success. Hermione's increasingly extensive index system for the notebooks, which had expanded from 4 books to 9, and which Draco had been quietly relieved was not his problem to organise. Harry's habit of staring at the Marauder's map for hours, not looking at any specific location, just holding it. Draco kept his curtained corner. He learned to identify the sound of each of them moving in the night. Harry paced when he couldn't sleep. Footsteps near the entrance. Ron turned over twice, and then was still. Hermione got up and came back with a book. He didn't acknowledge any of it. He lay on his cot and was aware of the information and filed it in the same place he'd been filing everything he observed about the 3 of them since June. He understood them better than he had any interest in admitting. Harry ran on responsibility and loyalty and the particular kind of courage that wasn't about not being afraid, but about going anyway. He took everything onto himself and needed to be reminded sometimes that other people could carry things. He was genuinely funny in a dry, self-deprecating way that came out when the pressure was briefly off, and Draco had started watching for those moments the way you watch for weather clearing. Hermione had more doubt than she showed. Her confidence in her own research was real, but she second-guessed the conclusions. sometimes for hours before she'd committed to them, and the research was partly the work and partly the process of arriving at certainty. She also cared about things fiercely, in the all-in, exhausting Gryffindor way that Draco had grown up finding ridiculous, and that he found, at close range, difficult to not find slightly admirable. Ron was perceptive, tactical in ways he didn't articulate, and better at managing his own limitations than he thought he was. He knew when to push and when not to. He knew when Harry needed argument and when Harry needed agreement. He knew when Hermione needed to be distracted from her own thoughts and how to distract her. Draco had concluded around month 3, the actual structural centre of this group, and the fact that this surprised almost everyone who looked at them from outside said more about those people than about Ron. Draco observed all of this and did not say most of it, because saying it would have been the kind of thing that made everyone uncomfortable and that they'd have to manage. And there was enough to manage. He kept it. It was useful to know. What he said, increasingly, was what was actually in his head when he said it, with less filtering for presentation. This was not a decision, it was what happened when you ran out of the energy for filtering. The filtering took constant attention, and there wasn't constant attention available, and the things that came out without filtering were not worse. They were just real. He hadn't expected real to be better received than managed. It mostly was. Not always. He still said things wrong, landed things at the wrong angle, deployed the tone without meaning to. He noticed it faster than he had before. He did something about it faster than he had before. He still didn't apologize in the way normal people apologized, with the whole word and the whole acknowledgement. What he did was stop doing the thing and do the opposite thing, which was either cowardice or pragmatism, and the difference between those two didn't interest him right now. What Hermione said, in March they were at Shell Cottage. The others were asleep. Hermione was not asleep, and Draco was not asleep, and they were both at the kitchen table with the obvious awareness that neither of them was pretending to be asleep. "You don't ask," she said. "What?" He said. "About how we're doing," she said. Harry asks. Ron asks. "You observe and adjust, but you don't ask." He looked at her. "Is that a problem?" "Not a problem," she said. "A thing I noticed." "Asking how someone is," Draco said, "is a social convention. You're either being polite, in which case you don't want a real answer, or you actually want to know, in which case you observe and get a more accurate answer than you'd get from asking. That assumes people don't know themselves," she said. "People know themselves poorly," he said. "The information they give you when asked is filtered through what they want to be true. So you don't ask," she said. "So I don't ask," he said. She considered this. "How am I doing then?" Based on observation. He looked at her. She was watching him steadily, the particular Hermione look that said, "I have asked a real question, and I want a real answer, and I know you have one." "You're frightened," he said. "Not about the mission. You've made peace with the mission risk. You're frightened that the theory about Harry is wrong. You've verified it yourself, you believe the mathematics of it, and you're still frightened because mathematics and magic aren't the same thing, and you know that, and you can't bridge the gap with more research." She was very still. "You're also..." He stopped. "Say it," she said. "You're tired of being the person who knows the most," he said. "Not tired of knowing. Tired of being the repository. Everyone comes to you with problems and you solve them, and you're good at it, it's genuinely who you are, but there's no one you go to with your problems." "I go to Ron," she said. "Ron is the one person in this tent you protect the most," he said. "You don't bring your worst things to him." She looked away. "So you don't ask," she said. "But you see." "I grew up being taught to read rooms," he said. "I've told you that. For strategic purposes," she said. "Initially," he said. She turned back to look at him. What's the non-initial purpose? To know if someone's all right, he said, which is the same information, just used differently. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm frightened the theory is wrong. I know, he said, and there's nothing I can do about that, she said. No, he said. So I just carry it, she said. You just carry it, he said. That's all. She nodded. She picked up her book and then put it down again. What are you frightened of? She said. He looked at her. It was a direct question. She'd earned a direct answer. That my mother is in a house with Bellatrix because of choices I made, he said. And that I made the right choices, and that the price of making them is her, and that there's no calculation that makes that all right. She said nothing. So I don't sleep much, he said. I noticed, she said. Of course you did, he said. They sat in the Shell Cottage kitchen in the pre-dawn and didn't say anything else, which was, Draco found, something he'd learned to value, the people who could be in silence without filling it with the wrong thing. Crabbe he hadn't known he was going to think about Crabbe as much as he did. He'd grown up next to Vincent Crabbe. Not close, Draco had not been close to anyone, not in the real sense, had kept everyone at the distance where they were useful rather than necessary. But Crabbe had been there since first year. Since the train, he'd been in every classroom, every Quidditch practice, every common room evening. He was part of the background texture of Hogwarts the way the lake was part of the background texture of Hogwarts. Draco had not liked him. He was not going to pretend otherwise. He had used Crabbe as muscle, as company, as a social signal. He had taught Crabbe the Fiend Fire incantation as a defensive measure in 6th year, because the Room of Requirement was a space that required extreme protection, and because Crabbe had enough magical capacity to maintain it. He had not thought about what would happen if Crabbe was the kind of person who would use it the way he used it. He thought about it now, at odd moments. During the ministry work sometimes, when a file crossed his desk and the name of one of the Carrows or one of the Outer Ring Death Eaters appeared, and he thought, the same people who were in the room when Crabbe died. The same war, the same chain. He mentioned this to Hermione once. You taught him the incantation, Hermione said, not accusing. Establishing, yes, Draco said. You didn't know he'd use it the way he did, she said. No, Draco said, but I knew what the incantation was. I knew what it could do. He made the choice, she said. He made the choice with the tools I gave him, Draco said. The responsibility? He stopped. I'm not asking for absolution. I'm noting that the chain of events runs through me. Hermione put her pen down. She looked at him across the desk. Okay, she said. That's it? He said. What do you want me to say? She said. That you didn't do anything wrong? You did. He died in a fire he started with a spell you taught him. That's not... She stopped. That's not clean. It doesn't resolve into clean. You live with it. I know, he said. You're doing a thing you do, she said, where you bring me a problem expecting me to tell you it's not a problem. I'm not expecting, you are, she said, not consciously, that you bring the things that won't resolve to me because you want me to find the resolution. She looked at him steadily. Some things don't resolve. Some things you just carry. He looked at the file on his desk. I know, he said. I know you know, she said. I'm saying it out loud because knowing and hearing it are different. He picked up the file. They went back to work. After the trials, the conversation they should have had earlier, the Wizard pub near the Ministry, had a back room that Ministry employees used for conversations that were either too sensitive or too personal for the main floor. Draco had been coming here for a year. It had become, gradually, the place where the four of them ended up after cases and after functions and after the occasional trial. It was a Thursday evening in what was now the second year after the battle. Harry had pints. Ron had pints. Hermione had wine. Draco had fire whiskey, which was a Malfoy habit that he'd kept partly because he genuinely preferred it, and partly because some things weren't worth changing. "You've been here for a year," Harry said. "Yes," Draco said. "The conditions are up in October," Harry said. "In 6 weeks," Draco said. "Yes, so you could go," Harry said. "In 6 weeks. France or wherever. Take your mum and..." "I know," Draco said. "Are you going to?" Harry said. Draco looked at him. At the three of them, Ron watching him with the careful attention Ron used when he was paying full attention without wanting it to be obvious. Hermione watching him with the full, direct. Nothing softened Granger gaze. "I don't know yet," Draco said. "The department's been good," Hermione said, carefully neutral. "The department's been useful," Draco said. "I'm good at it. I know the material better than most people we have." "You do?" she said. "My mother likes London," he said. "She's been here long enough that I think she'd consider staying." A pause. The manor is still in dispute. France was always temporary. "Right," Harry said. "You want me to stay," Draco said. "We want you to do what makes sense," Harry said. But also yes," Ron said. Draco looked at Ron. Ron held his gaze with the unabashed honesty that was the most Weasley thing about him. "The department won't be the same if you go," Ron said. "It's not just what you know. It's how you..." He stopped, made a face like someone tasting a word they're not sure about. "It's how you think. You think like them. The people we're still tracking. Not like you're one of them anymore, but you know the patterns." "I know," Draco said. "Can't learn that," Ron said. "Can't teach it. Either you have it, or you don't." "That's the most pragmatic argument for keeping me around I've ever heard," Draco said. "I'm a practical person," Ron said. "Was that?" Draco stopped. "Was that a compliment?" "The second part." "Partially," Ron said. "Which part?" "The part where I said we want you to stay," Ron said. "That was a compliment. The part about thinking like them was just accurate." Harry was grinning into his pint. Hermione looked like she was deciding whether to be exasperated or amused. "All right," Draco said. "All right, you'll stay?" Harry said. "All right, I'll think about it," Draco said. "Which I was already doing, so I'm not sure why we needed this conversation." "Because sometimes," Hermione said, "saying it out loud is the point, even if the decision hasn't changed." He looked at her. "I've noticed," he said, "that you say that fairly often." "Because it's frequently true," she said. He stayed. He'd known he was going to stay before the conversation. But the conversation had been the point, apparently, and he'd learned to accept that sometimes the point was the saying and not the deciding. He stayed. The full story, one deflected curse, 1 year in a tent, 1 battle, 2 years of conditional freedom, and the ongoing, imperfect, still Draco Malfoy life that followed. Not a redemption. Not a transformation. A set of choices made under pressure that turned out to be the right ones, and the slow discovery that being right wasn't the same as being good. But it was a start. More scenes, more truth January. The locket takes its time. They had the locket in the tent for 16 days before they could do anything with it. The sword needed to go in, but the sword required someone to use it on an opened Horcrux, and the Horcrux had to be dealt with properly, which meant the timing mattered and the state of the person using the sword mattered. And between the Ministry fallout and moving camp twice, and Ron's shoulder healing and 3 other active problems, 16 days passed with the locket in a double-sealed bag on the table. By day 12, everyone was fighting. Not about the locket directly, about everything else. Harry and Hermione spent 40 minutes in heated argument about the correct interpretation of a passage in a text Hermione had found, which was an argument that would have taken 10 minutes under normal circumstances, but that kept looping back to positions both of them had already conceded. Ron had picked a fight with Harry about watch rotations for reasons that appeared to have nothing to do with watch rotations. Draco had said something sharp to Ron that came out worse than he'd intended, and that Ron had responded to with the cold, flat silence that was Ron's version of serious anger. Nobody said it was the locket. "It's the locket," Draco said on day 12. "I know it's the locket," Hermione said. "Then why?" "Because dealing with the locket means someone opens it and faces whatever's inside and drives the sword through a piece of Voldemort's soul," she said. "It's not a simple afternoon's task. The longer it's in here, I know," she said. "I know." "Someone decides today," Draco said. "Or we put it outside the tent." "We can't put it outside, then someone decides today," Draco said. She looked at him. "You think it should be Ron? I think it should be whoever it shows things to most intensely," he said. "Because that person needs to face it," she said. "I've thought that too." "Who?" he said. She was quiet. "Hermione," he said. "Ron," she said. They looked at each other. "You've been watching him," he said. "Yes," she said. "What you said about the locket," Draco said. "The way it amplifies the fears that are already there. For Ron specifically, she stopped. "You've seen it too. The insecurity," Draco said. "About being here versus being home. About whether he's doing enough. About Harry." He paused. "About you." He looked away briefly. "The locket's been making it worse," Draco said. "He needs to be the one who faces whatever it shows him. Not because he can handle it, because handling it means the thing he's been managing quietly becomes something he's actually faced." "That's a charitable interpretation," she said. "It's a strategic one," he said. "Also a charitable one," she said. He didn't argue. Harry agreed. They prepared. Ron found out he was going to drive the sword through the locket about 4 hours before it happened, which was probably not enough time, but which was the right call. Too much warning and he'd overthink it. The thing that came out of the locket was bad. Draco was at the far side of the tent, and he could still feel the quality of it. The wrong air, the pressure, something deeply uncomfortable, pressing against the edges of the warding. He watched Ron's face go through multiple things. He watched Ron's wand arm shake. He said the thing he'd said in the planning, it finds the fear that's already there. He said it because he had to say something, and because the thing he'd almost said, "I know what it's showing you," would have been worse. Ron drove the sword through. The locket was ash. Ron sat down. Harry was next to him immediately, and Hermione a step behind, and Draco stayed at the edge because the space between those three was theirs. It had always been theirs. His position in this group was adjacent, not central, and he'd made peace with adjacent because adjacent was real. After a while, Ron looked up. "The way it showed me," he started. "You don't have to say," Harry said. "I know," Ron said. "I want to." He looked at Harry. "It showed me you two not caring if I left." Harry stared at him. "Ron, I know," Ron said. "I know it wasn't real. I knew it while it was happening. That's the thing. It wasn't making up something impossible. It was making possible something possible." He looked at the ash on the floor. "That's the whole trick of it, right? It doesn't have to lie. You know Hermione started. "I know," Ron said. "I just needed to say it." He stood up. "I'm fine. 4 more. 3 more," Harry said. 3 more. Draco crossed the tent. He handed Ron a cup of water, which was on the table next to him and had been there the whole time. Ron took it, looked at him. "You were right about me doing it," Ron said. "You knew you were the right person," Draco said. "You just needed someone to say it." "Yeah," Ron said. He drank the water. The tent was quiet. Blaise Zabini Draco ran into Blaise Zabini at the Ministry 3 months after the trials. Not ran into, found. Blaise was in the queue for a magical law registration at the 3rd floor desk. wearing robes that were excellent and an expression that indicated he was finding the Q personally offensive. He looked up when Draco appeared. "Draco," Blaise said. "Blaise," Draco said. They stood in the ministry queue and assessed each other. They had been at school together for 7 years. They had not been close, because Blaise didn't do close in any meaningful sense. He did social proximity and strategic alliance and the occasional genuine conversation, and he had been more observant than anyone gave him credit for. "You're working here," Blaise said. "Dark Artifact Department," Draco said. "You?" "Property registration," Blaise said. "My mother has acquired some property that the Ministry has developed opinions about." "Of course she has," Draco said. This was such an accurate Zabini situation that he almost smiled. "I heard about your year," Blaise said. "Most people have," Draco said. "I heard the specific version," Blaise said. "Not the profit version. The version from people who were there." "Which people?" Draco said. "Neville Longbottom mentioned it," Blaise said. "He and I cross paths occasionally. He said you held passages during the battle, that you knew the school better than the Death Eaters who'd been using it all year." "I grew up in the school," Draco said. "We all grew up in the school," Blaise said. "You knew it." "There's a difference." Draco said nothing. "I stayed neutral," Blaise said. "For the record." "I know," Draco said. "I've thought about that," Blaise said. "Whether neutral was the right call." "Was it?" Draco said. Blaise looked at the queue, at the ministry around them. "I'm not dead," he said. "I'm not in Azkaban. My mother's property is registrable. By most measures, but," Draco said. "But Pansy was there," Blaise said. "She didn't fight either way. She called for them to hand Potter over, which..." He stopped. "She's not here. She left. Switzerland, I think." "I know," Draco said. "And Crabbe is dead," Blaise said. "Yes," Draco said. "And you were there," Blaise said. "In the middle of all of it. On a side you didn't start on." "Yes," Draco said. Blaise looked at him. He had always been good at looking at things. It was the quality Draco had most valued about him, back when valuing qualities in people was something Draco did. The ability to look directly at something without flinching away from what it was. "Did it work?" Blaise said. "Did what work?" Draco said. "Being there," Blaise said. "Being in it." "Did it?" He searched for the word. "Did it do anything?" Draco thought about this, about what an honest answer to that question looked like. "Yes," he said. "Not the way I thought it would. But yes." The queue moved. They moved with it. "The property registration department is through there," Draco said, indicating the left corridor. "I know where it is," Blaise said. "Of course," Draco said. Blaise went left. Draco went right, toward the Dark Artifact office, toward the day's work. Learning not to the thing he learned gradually was how not to perform. He had been performing for as long as he could remember. Not consciously, not in the sense of having a script he followed, but the management layer had been so constant, so thorough, so totally present in every interaction. That distinguishing between performance and presence had required effort. The tent had removed the effort. Not because the tent was enlightening in some profound way. Because the tent was small and time was long, and 3 people who had been watching him for 7 years of school and then a year of very close quarters simply stopped being fooled by the management. You can't manage your way through indefinite exposure. The management ran out, and what was underneath it was just Draco without the layer, which turned out to be a distinct and complicated person rather than the absence of one. He noticed it in small ways. He stopped measuring out what he said. He stopped running the calculation about how something was going to land before he said it. He ran it still sometimes, had not lost the ability, but the automatic deployment of it had faded. He started saying things that were true rather than things that were strategically accurate. The difference between true and strategically accurate was smaller than it sounds. Strategic accuracy was built from truth. The issue was the filter, the pre-processing, the selection of the true thing that served a purpose. Removing that filter didn't make everything he said different. It made it more direct. Less considered in the sense of calculated, more considered in the sense of actual thought. He also stopped being surprised by his own responses. For years, he'd had a gap between what he felt and what he said that was wide enough to cross without noticing. The gap had always been there. The management layer was how he crossed it. The management layer was thinner now, and the gap was thinner with it, which meant that his face sometimes told people things before his words did, which was an extremely uncomfortable development that he was still working on controlling. Harry noticed. Harry always noticed the wrong thing at the wrong moment. "You're annoyed," Harry said one morning. "I'm fine," Draco said. "You're annoyed," Harry said, "and you'd normally have your face doing something else by now." "I'm working on it," Draco said. "Maybe don't," Harry said. Draco looked at him. "What?" "The face thing," Harry said. "The managing the face thing. You've been doing it less, and it's," he searched for the word, "better. Actually, easier to know where you are." "I'll bear that in mind," Draco said. "I just meant," "I know what you meant," Draco said. Harry went back to his maps. Draco went back to his work. He was annoyed. He was annoyed because the briefing that morning had included information about a dark artifact that his father had sold to someone in 2001 and that had caused harm and that was now in ministry custody. And the information was documented and accurate and entirely consistent with who his father had been. And the specific combination of being accurate and being about his father was the particular. Irritant, he had not managed the face. Harry had noticed. He filed this under. Things to continue not managing, possibly, the question Pansy had asked, revisited, is it going to work? She'd asked it the night of the battle. He'd said he didn't know. He thought about it afterward. About what she'd been asking. Not about the tactical outcome. Pansy was smart enough to read tactical situations. He'd been asking about the other thing, whether the choice he'd made had been worth it, whether choosing the side that was harder to be on had produced something real. The honest answer? A year after the battle? Partially. The war was over. That was real and enormous, and not to be understated. The wizarding world was rebuilding in ways that were imperfect but present. Ministry reform moving slowly, Hogwarts recovering, families returning to their lives without the weight of Voldemort's return hanging over everything. That was real. The cost was also real. People who were gone. Crabbe, Dobby, Fred Weasley had made it. Barely. But other Weasleys had been hurt and the scars were there. Remus Lupin was gone. Tonks was gone. The list was long, and each name on it was the end of someone who had existed and who had mattered to someone. Draco's family was, surviving. His father was somewhere in Italy, smaller than he'd been, writing careful letters. His mother was in London, doing what she always did, making the situation as functional as possible through will and intelligence. The manor was still in legal dispute. The Malfoy name meant something different than it had meant before, which was sometimes a problem and sometimes not, and navigating the difference was an ongoing project. What was personal, what was his specifically, he understood himself better than he had. Not because he'd wanted to, because the circumstances had required it, and because three very different people who were very good at different things had been in the same small space for long enough that he'd had no choice. Harry saw through things. Ron saw people. Hermione catalogued everything, and then told you what the catalogue said. Between the three of them, there had been nowhere to hide that was worth hiding in. He'd found out he was capable of things he hadn't expected, holding a perimeter for 3 hours while waiting for people he cared about to come back from something dangerous, cutting ropes in a cellar because the alternative was not something he could live with, standing in a drawing room and saying I can't be certain with his family watching and his aunt ready, He'd found out he was not capable of some things he'd thought he was. Sustained indifference. The clean strategic distance that his father had modelled and that he'd been practicing his whole life. He had lost that somewhere in the tent, probably early. Probably around the time he'd started reading Ron's face during chess and caring whether the person he was playing could see what he was doing. He'd started caring about the outcome for specific people, not people in the abstract. Harry, Ron, Hermione, his mother. Doyle, stumbling out of the room with soot in his hair and his face broken open. Neville Longbottom, who had given him a nod of acknowledgement and then gone back to work, which was exactly the right response. Is it going to work? Yes, he'd say now. Partially, but it worked in the sense that something was true at the end that hadn't been true at the beginning, and the something was real, and he was in it. That was the answer. The last word 3 years after the battle, Draco attended a ministry function at which the annual honours for wartime contribution were announced. He had been informed in advance that his name was on the list, which he had tried to have removed and failed to have removed because the committee chair was Hermione, and Hermione's decisions on these matters were final. He stood in the back of the room, which was where he stood at these things, and he watched his name be read out, and he watched Harry applaud, and he watched Ron clap in the slightly over-emphatic way Ron clapped things he actually approved of. And he thought about June, 4 years ago, and the alley behind the 3 broomsticks, and the note at dawn that said all 3 of us. Afterward, in the corridor, Harry found him. You tried to get off the list, Harry said. I had grounds, Draco said. Hermione said no, Harry said. I noticed, Draco said. She said your grounds were wrong, Harry said. She said the criteria were contribution and consequence, and you met both. The contribution involved a year of pursuing my own interests, Draco said. The contribution involved a year of doing things that needed doing, Harry said. The reasons don't come off the contribution. That's generous, Draco said. It's accurate, Harry said. Draco looked at the corridor. At the ministry around them, which was not the ministry of 3 years ago, better now in ways that were real if slow, Hermione's department had produced reports that had become law. Harry's team had caught 6 former Death Eaters who'd gone to ground. The work continued, as it always did, but it was work that was pointed in the right direction. I've been thinking, Harry said. That's either very promising or very dangerous, Draco said. The team has an opening, Harry said. An aura support position. Dark artifact specialist. The brief would be, You're poaching me from Hermione's department, Draco said. She knows, Harry said. She supports it. She supports you poaching her people, Draco said. She supports the work going where it's most useful, Harry said. There's a difference. Draco looked at him. At Harry Potter, who had said run now in a June night 4 years ago, and who had meant it, who had been extending versions of that offer ever since, in the characteristically Harry way of not making anything into a production. I'll think about it, Draco said. You'll say yes, Harry said. I'll think about it, Draco said again, firmly. Harry smiled. Okay, he said. Stop looking like you know what I'm going to decide, Draco said. I'm not looking like anything, Harry said. You absolutely are, Draco said. Harry handed him a parchment. The brief, probably. He'd had it ready. You knew I was going to be here tonight, Draco said. You're always at these things, Harry said. Hermione makes me come, Draco said. She makes me come too, Harry said. Welcome to having people. Draco looked at the parchment. He did not say yes that evening. He thought about it for 2 weeks, which was the required amount of time for a decision that was already made. And then he said, yes. And the work continued in a new direction that required everything he knew and some things he hadn't known yet. He was good at learning. He was, it turned out, good at a number of things he hadn't expected to be good at. The story doesn't have a clean ending because clean endings are for stories that resolve into a permanent state. This one doesn't. Draco Malfoy makes the same choices every morning. To be useful, to be present, to be the version of himself that earned his place in the room instead of inheriting it. Some mornings it's easier than others. That's all. That's the whole thing. One deflected curse. 4 years of consequence. The ongoing, imperfect, real life on the other side of it. He's in the room. That's enough. Additional scenes. The ones. The story needs. The argument that was really about everything. They'd been in the tent for 6 months when Harry and Draco had their first real fight. Not the pointed comments and the cold responses and the managed tensions of the earlier months. A fight, voices raised, both of them, which was something Draco hadn't expected from Harry and which had clearly been building since the mistake with the letter. The trigger was stupid. They were going over what Draco knew about Voldemort's operational patterns, who travelled with him, where he'd been seen, when the snake was near him, and Harry said something about the reliability of the information that Draco had sourced from his family's contacts. The source is reliable, Draco said. The source is your father's network, Harry said. My father built his network over 30 years, Draco said. His contacts are in the Ministry, in Gringotts, in the pureblood community. Most of them have better access to current information than anything we have. Most of them are Death Eater sympathizers, Harry said. Not all, Draco said. Enough, Harry said. What's enough? Draco said. Enough that trusting the information wholesale is dangerous, Harry said. It's all filtered through people with reasons to not want us to succeed. Everything's filtered, Draco said. Your sources are filtered too. The Order's information is filtered through people who want to believe they're winning. That's, Harry started. True, Draco said. It's true and you know it. At least with my sources I know the filters and I can account for them. You're accountable for filters on information you got from the people who work for Voldemort, Harry said. Do you see how that's still a problem? I'm accountable for everything I know, Draco said. All of it came from that world. If that disqualifies the information, you should have left me in the alley. Maybe I should have, Harry said. A silence. Ron had stopped pretending to play chess. Hermione was very still. Say that again, Draco said. I didn't mean, Harry started. You meant something, Draco said. Say what you meant. I meant that taking you in was a risk, Harry said. And I made the call, and I stand by it. But sometimes I wonder what we're risking with every piece of information you give us. Whether something is going to get us killed. Something might, Draco said. I've told you that. I've told you from the first conversation that my information is the best I have and that it's limited by what I knew before June. And then you sent a letter that nearly got us caught, Harry said. I made a mistake, Draco said. I've made one mistake in 6 months. I've made mistakes, Harry said. I know I have. Then what is this? Draco said. What's the actual argument? Harry looked at him. The anger was there, but there was something else under it, which Draco had learned to identify in Harry as the thing that the anger was covering. I don't know if I trust you, Harry said. Still, after 6 months. I know, Draco said. And I don't know if that's the right position, Harry said. Or if I'm just... He stopped. I don't know if I'm holding on to something I should have let go. You're asking me, Draco said. Not exactly, Harry said. You're asking me if you should trust me, Draco said. No, Harry said. I'm saying I don't know whether the reason I don't trust you is evidence or habit. Draco looked at him, at Harry Potter, who had been at war since he was a baby and who was 17 years old, and who was asking, in the most Harry way possible, whether his instincts were right. Both, Draco said. Harry looked at him. It's both, Draco said. Part of it is evidence. I'm on a list. My family worked for Voldemort. I made a mistake with the letter. Those are real reasons. He paused. Part of it is habit. 6 years of school. the pattern of what I was. That's also real. Then how do I know which is which? Harry said. You don't, Draco said. Not completely. You watch what I do. You see if the pattern holds. He looked at Harry steadily. I know the information I give you is right. I know it because I cross-check it against things I can verify. Because I don't give you anything I can't verify. I've been doing that from the first conversation. He paused. That's all I have. Either you find it sufficient or you don't. I find it. Harry stopped. Mostly sufficient, Ron said. Everyone looked at him. Mostly, Ron said. 6 months of mostly is a lot. It's not trust exactly, but it's not nothing. Ron, Harry started. He's right though, Ron said. The letter was the first real problem, and even then he was in the same trouble we were. What's he going to do? Tip them off and then get caught too? Harry was quiet. I'm not asking you to trust me completely, Draco said. I don't think I've earned that, and I'm not going to pretend I have. I'm asking you to use the judgment you actually have rather than the judgment you've decided you should have. Harry looked at the map, at the tent walls, at the situation in its entirety. Yeah, he said. Okay, Draco said. Ron picked up his chess piece. Hermione opened her notebook. The argument was over. The problem it had come from was not over. Trust doesn't resolve in a conversation. It resolves in time, in the accumulation of days where someone does or doesn't do the thing that confirms or challenges the position. That continued. It was still continuing. But it had been said, and saying it mattered. The Cup to Gringotts mission was the one where Draco most felt the weight of not being able to go in. He had prepared them as thoroughly as he could. He had gone through the vault access protocols 3 times. He had described the security on the Lestrange vault section from his knowledge of similar vaults in the same wing. He had briefed Hermione on the particular danger of the detection charms that responded to magical intrusion rather than physical presence. Then, he'd gone back to Shell Cottage and waited. Bill Weasley had offered him tea. He'd accepted it because refusing seemed petty, and he was trying to be less petty on principle. You brief well, Bill said. I know vaults, Draco said. My father was in Gringotts constantly. Financial arrangements that required, things that weren't in the official records. He took me along sometimes to understand how the system worked. Useful education, Bill said. All his education was useful, Draco said. The use he had in mind wasn't always the use I ended up with. Bill looked at him. He had the quality of someone who had spent years working in Gringotts dealing with people under pressure about their assets. He read people the way Harry reads situations, from a professional habit. You're waiting to find out if you sent them into something your briefing missed, Bill said. Yes, Draco said. Is there anything you think you missed? Bill said. Draco thought. He had been thinking about it for 6 hours. The curse detection in the inner vault section might have been updated, he said. The pattern I described was from 3 years ago. If it was updated after Voldemort started using the Lestrange vault, I know someone who worked that section, Bill said. I can check. He went to check. He came back 20 minutes later with information that revised 2 things in Draco's briefing. Neither of them could reach Harry, Hermione, and Ron. They were already inside, past the point where communication was possible. The 2 things, Draco said. How serious? One is manageable if they're careful, Bill said. The other one he stopped. The other one they'll need to improvise around. They sat in Shell Cottage and waited for 3 more hours. The dragon came through the roof of Gringotts, and the whole of Diagon Alley knew about it before nightfall. Harry came back first. Because Harry always came back first. Not because he was fastest, but because he moved toward regrouping while others were still processing. He came through the door wet from the lake and singed and looking like someone who had recently ridden a dragon, which was because he had. The cup's destroyed, Harry said. The other thing, I know, Draco said. Bill told me. He paused. Were you caught by the detection change? Near enough, Harry said. Hermione improvised. Of course she did, Draco said. Yeah, Harry said. Ron came in. He was also wet, also singed, and had an expression that suggested he had been slightly euphoric and was now coming down from it in the way of people who had done something extremely improbable and were running out of the physiological capacity for continued amazement. We rode a dragon, Ron said. I heard, Draco said. Out of Gringotts, Ron said. I understand the geography, Draco said. Draco, Ron said. What? We rode a dragon out of Gringotts, Ron said. Out of. We went in through the front and out through the ceiling on a dragon. Well done, Draco said. Ron grinned. It was the Ron grin, full, surprised at itself, the one that arrived before he'd decided whether the situation warranted it. Yeah, he said. It was. Hermione came in last. She sat down immediately at the table and opened a notebook and for 30 seconds wrote without saying anything, and then she stopped and put the pen down. The cup's done, she said. Yes, Harry said. The diadem, she said. And then? And then, Harry said. And then the battle, Draco said. Because someone had to say it. A silence. Yeah, Harry said. The battle. What the battle cost Draco this is the thing Draco kept coming back to in the year after. He had gone into the battle expecting to feel the weight of which side he was on in the way you feel the weight of a choice as you make it. The heightened awareness of the choice, the consciousness of the alternative. What he'd felt instead was nothing like that. He'd felt the castle. He'd felt the people in it. He'd felt what was happening to a place he'd grown up in. He had, he discovered, actually grown up at Hogwarts, not just attended. The castle had been his for 7 years, not his in the sense of ownership, but his in the sense of known. He knew the staircase on the 4th floor that moved at 3 in the afternoon. He knew the corridor near the charms classroom that had cold pockets of air that came from nowhere. He knew the exact angle of afternoon light in November that turned the surface of the lake the particular shade that wasn't quite green and wasn't quite grey. He'd loved the place without knowing he loved it, the way you love things that are simply present through your whole childhood. Watching Death Eaters in it was different from knowing that Death Eaters were in it. He had known abstractly that Hogwarts was occupied. Seeing it was different. The specific quality of disrespect. The specific quality of a place that had been a school, that had been, for whatever else it was, a place of learning, where the magic was for understanding things, being used as a staging ground for the ideology that had opposed everything the school was supposed to do. He'd been angrier than he'd expected. Not about strategic outcomes, about the castle. He'd also, and he didn't talk about this, been glad to be there. To be in the school for the last fight that happened in it, with the right people, for the right reasons. He had never been in the school for the right reasons before. He'd been there for social position and family obligation and 6 years of performing who he was supposed to be. That night, he'd been there because Harry Potter was there, and because there were students who needed passages navigated, and because Crabbe was going to do something with Fiendfire in the Room of Requirement, and someone who knew the room needed to be there. He'd been there because he was needed. Not useful as an asset. Needed in the way a person is needed, when the specific things they know and can do are the things required. He didn't talk about this because talking about it was the kind of thing that made the night into something it wasn't. A moment of glory, a redemption scene, a point on an arc that resolved neatly. It wasn't that. It was a night in a castle he loved, fighting for people he'd ended up caring about, against things that should have been stopped much earlier. That was all. That was what it was. The conversation with Lucius, 4 years later Italy, was warm in September in a way that England never was. His father's apartment was in a town that Draco hadn't heard of before, in a part of Italy that seemed to have decided the 20th century was optional. The apartment was small. It had a terrace. On the terrace, Lucius Malfoy sat in the morning sun, looking at nothing in particular, with the expression of someone who had thought about something until the thinking had worn smooth. Draco sat across from him. They had been having this conversation in pieces for 2 years. Letters, occasional visits. The conversation that accumulated between people who have too much history and not enough trust, and who are trying to find a language that fits. Your work, Lucius said. Dark artifacts, Draco said. Ministry, going well. I've read the reports, Lucius said. There are public reports, Draco said. And the other kind, Lucius said. I still have contacts. Draco looked at him. You're tracking my work through contacts. I'm tracking whether you're all right through contacts, Lucius said. There is a difference. Draco sat with this. Why didn't you ask me directly? He said. Because you would have managed the answer, Lucius said. Draco stared at him. You've always managed your answers to me, Lucius said. Since you were 8. You gave me the answers you knew I wanted. I gave you the answers I knew you needed. He looked at the terrace railing. I didn't know that was wrong for a very long time, Father, Draco said. I'm not looking for absolution, Lucius said. It was almost exactly what Draco said sometimes when the same conversation came up. I'm just noting it. The pattern. Draco looked at the town below the terrace, at the ordinary September morning happening in it. I managed less than I used to, Draco said. I noticed, Lucius said. In the work, Draco said. In how he stopped. I lost the energy for it. The constant management. I was in close quarters with 3 people who were immune to management for long enough that the reflex wore down. And now? Lucius said. Now I manage sometimes, Draco said. And don't manage sometimes. I know the difference. That's... Lucius stopped. What? Draco said. Better, Lucius said. Better than I managed. Draco looked at his father. At this man who had been very large in his childhood, and who was smaller now, not physically, but the presence had receded. The certainty. Lucius Malfoy had always had certainty. He had organised his entire world around it, and the certainty had been wrong about so many things that there was nothing left of the structure it had supported. The manor, Draco said. The ministry will release it in the next year, Lucius said. Or what's left of it. Your mother's solicitor, she knows, Draco said. She's decided she doesn't want to go back. Lucius was quiet. She's in London, Draco said. She has a life there. He thought about how to say it. She has something to do that is specifically hers for the first time in probably 30 years. Lucius was still quiet. She was always doing something that was yours, Draco said. Or the family's, or the ideologies. She was always supporting something that came before herself. I know, Lucius said. Do you? Draco said. Not with heat, with genuine curiosity. I've thought about it, Lucius said. I've had time to think about it. I know it now better than I knew it then. He paused. Too late. Not for the letters, Draco said. She reads your letters. Lucius looked at him. She reads them, and she doesn't say much about them, Draco said. But she reads them. That's not nothing. His father was quiet for a long time. No, Lucius said. It's not nothing. The morning continued. The town continued below them. 2 Malfoys on a terrace in Italy, working out what could be salvaged, which was less than had been lost, and more than nothing, which was the only arithmetic available. Come to London, Draco said, at some point. When it's... He stopped. When it's possible, Lucius said. When it's possible, Draco agreed. He stayed for lunch. He took the portkey back in the afternoon. London was grey and familiar when he arrived. He stopped by his mother's flat on the way home. She was in the kitchen when he came in, working on something. She always had a project now, some bit of research or correspondence. She had taken up the habit of being perpetually occupied in the productive rather than the performative way that he recognized from the year in the tent. "Italy?" she said. Not a question. "Yes," he said. She handed him tea. He sat down. "He's all right," Draco said. "I know," she said. "He asked about you," Draco said. She stirred her tea. "Through contacts," Draco said. She looked up. Something moved on her face. "He's tracking through contacts whether you're all right," Draco said, "because he thought if he asked directly you'd manage the answer." She looked at him. "He's right," she said. "I know," Draco said. They sat in her kitchen in London with their tea in the afternoon, and the conversation moved to other things. His work, her project, the neighbourhood, the flat below hers whose new occupant played music at unreasonable hours. Ordinary things. Draco went home at 7. He made dinner. He read a ministry brief. He thought briefly about all the conversations that had led to this particular Thursday evening. His life, ordinary and complicated, with the specific texture of someone who had been many things and was now trying to be a real one. He thought about this, and then he stopped thinking about it because the brief needed finishing. He finished it. He went to sleep. In the morning there would be work, and the day after that, and the one after that. He was in it. That was the whole thing. That was all it ever needed to be. The scenes nobody talks about after the week after the battle, the week after the Battle of Hogwarts, was nothing like any of them had expected, which Draco thought should have been obvious, but apparently wasn't. He wasn't sure what he'd expected. Something more linear. Something that moved from the battle to a clear delineation, some visible line between during and after, what it actually was, the castle still damaged, people still arriving and leaving, healers still moving through the halls. The specific exhaustion of a world that had been holding something off and that was now trying to remember what it did when it didn't have to hold. He found a corner of the great hall where he could sit without being in anyone's way, and he sat there for most of the first day. He wasn't injured. He wasn't needed for anything immediate. He was simply present in the hall, watching people find each other. He watched the Weasleys. He couldn't help watching the Weasleys, because they took up a considerable portion of the Great Hall, and because the specific quality of watching a family process simultaneous grief and relief from a distance had a gravity to it. Fred Weasley's near death, he'd been found in the rubble, was going to be all right, would carry a scar from the wall that had come down, had rearranged something in the family's emotional structure in a way that was visible even from across the room. George didn't leave Fred's side. Arthur moved between his children with the specific movement of someone counting and recounting. Molly was very still at the centre of all of it. He looked for his own mother, found her with his father, which was not what he'd expected. Lucius had been in the castle. He hadn't known Lucius would be there until he'd seen him in the corridor, and now here they were, his parents, standing in the great hall, not quite touching but near each other, in a way that meant something. His mother looked across the room at him. He lifted his chin. She nodded. They were both all right. That was the communication. Harry found him at some point in the afternoon. "You're still here," Harry said. "Where would I go?" Draco said. This was becoming his standard answer, and he wasn't sure what to do about that. "Fair point," Harry said. He sat down next to Draco, which was not something Draco had expected, and which settled in with the ease of something that had been practiced. "Your parents," Harry said. "In the hall," Draco said. "There?" He stopped. "All right?" "Good," Harry said. A quiet. "I'm going to sleep for about a week," Harry said. "That seems medically inadvisable," Draco said. "It's a figure of speech," Harry said. "I know," Draco said. "I know you know," Harry said. He stopped. Made a face at himself. "I'm too tired to be clever." "Then don't," Draco said. "Yeah," Harry said. They sat in the great hall in the afternoon of the first day after. Around them, the world was reassembling itself from its component parts, which was going to take a long time, and which would be imperfect, and which was, Draco thought, the best available outcome. "You're going to have to testify," Harry said, "at the trials." "I know," Draco said. "I'm going to as well," Harry said. "On your behalf." Draco looked at him. "I didn't ask, no," Harry said. "You didn't." He met Draco's eyes. "I'm going to anyway." The specific thing about Harry Potter that Draco had spent 4 years slowly, uncomfortably learning, he did what he thought was right with the same completeness that he did everything else. Not performatively, not for credit, just completely the way Harry did things. "Thank you," Draco said. "Don't," Harry said. "Don't thank you," Draco said. "Don't make it a thing," Harry said. "You made it a thing by telling me," Draco said. "I told you so you'd know," Harry said. "Not so you'd," he gestured. "Have feelings about it?" Draco said. "React formally," Harry said. "You do that. The formal reaction. It means you're not sure what the real reaction should be." Draco said nothing. "Have the real reaction," Harry said. "Whatever it is." Draco sat with this for a moment. "The real reaction is that I wasn't expecting it, and that I appreciate it," he said, "and that I'm still working out how to receive things without turning them into transactions." Harry looked at him. The Harry look, not calculating now, not managing anything, just looking. "Yeah," Harry said. "Same, actually." This was apparently enough, because they sat in companionable silence for another hour, which was something that would not have been possible at any other point in their shared history, and which was possible now because they had 11 months of shared history that had been specifically theirs, that had happened in a tent and a ministry corridor and a drawing room and a room of hidden things, and that had changed the geometry of what was possible between them. The Great Hall continued its work around them. They sat. This is the story. One night in June. One deflected curse. The wrong person doing the right thing, for no better reason than that a curse was coming at him and he'd been practicing shield charms for 8 months. And then everything after. The Hog's Head at 3 a.m. The back room with 3 wands pointed at him. The tent in its many locations. The slow, grinding, imperfect, necessary year of being useful and being wrong sometimes, and being in the same space as 3 people who were too good at seeing through things to be fooled by performance. Draco Malfoy learned things in that year, not through epiphany, through accumulation, through chess games and argument and Hermione's notebooks and Ron's blunt assessments and Harry's complete unnerving insistence on seeing people as people. Through watching 3 people care about each other and about a world that had tried repeatedly to destroy them and that they were trying repeatedly to save. He did not become a different person. He is still recognizably Draco Malfoy, proud in ways that are sometimes a problem, sharp in ways that are sometimes a problem, not naturally warm in the way that some people are naturally warm. He still says things wrong sometimes. He still has the reflexes he was trained to have, even when he'd rather not have them. What changed was what the reflexes were pointed at. What changed was the gap between the managed version and the real one. What changed was the understanding that the calculation was not the same as the action, and that the action was what left the mark. He'd left marks. Some of them were wrong. The years of school, the ideology, the word he'd said in voices that still existed in the memory of people who'd heard it. He carried those. He would carry them. He'd also left other marks. Information that had changed the course of the hunt. A sentence in a drawing room that had bought time. A hand in a cellar that had cut rope. A shield charm that had gone the wrong direction in the right moment and started the whole improbable year. Not redeemed. Not transformed. Still Draco Malfoy, in the room, working. That's the story. That's all it is. That's everything.